Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. My name's Chris Hall and I'm back. Pete, lovely to see you, mate. I'm joined by my good friend, Pete Davey. Pete, how the hell are you, mate? You good?
I'm okay, mate. I'm okay. How the hell are you?
I know.
You've been out of action for the last week.
Yeah, do you know what? Big shout out to Holly first of all. I watched the show and thought she was absolutely great. So big massive thank yous for Holly for stepping in for me. Yeah, I've had COVID, but I'm now feeling much better, more like myself. So yeah, I've been really looking forward to getting back on screen. Obviously, I was briefly on screen, wasn't I, on Saturday for the match reaction, even though I didn't really want to do it. I wasn't feeling great, but also after watching that match, Pete, I was struggling, gotta be honest. But yeah, feeling much better today anyway. But let's get right into it, Pete. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling over the match on Saturday?
Well, I'm feeling a little bit deflated, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably what every Newcastle fan is feeling on a Monday morning after a game where we were adamant that we were going to win, we needed to win, we had to win in order to give ourselves a chance. But deflated, even more deflated because I'm not seeing the sort of action in the transfer market that I expected. I said on our reaction show on Loaded, what I needed to see, what fans needed to see, is a reaction in the market, bringing a player in that we need, ideally a centre back, even better if there's a midfielder coming in not long behind them. Doesn't seem to be any clear links to anybody. We're just seeing links here and there with players, nothing concrete. I know that there's a stuff on Diego Carlos, but we've been talking about that for 2 weeks now. We're no further on. 2 weeks is a long time to do a deal, in my opinion. So yeah, just a little bit deflated. The fans need a pickup. They need a pickup after that because every fan was deflated, and you cannot argue the fans' support for the players and the manager over the last 10 weeks, 8-10 weeks. Right, we have backed the club, we have backed the owners, we have backed the manager, we've backed the players. The reaction of the fans coming out from the fans.
It was amazing.
No, there is nowhere else in the Premier League that would do that, and not just do that, but do that in the predicament that we are in 19th position in the Premier League. There was no other fans in the Premier League that would do that. No other fan in England that would do that. And they can't argue that we're not backing the players, but in the manager and the club. But we need something now. We need something to keep us going. Otherwise, I worry that if something doesn't change in the transfer market, or we don't pick up a win on Saturday, I fear that the tide's going to turn with the fans, and it's going to turn sour, and that's not what we want. Because if it starts to turn like that, the players are going to react to that, and it's going to make us worse. It really is. So, let's hope for a big reaction this week in the build up to the Leeds game.
Yeah, no, I agree, Pete. I mean, I watched the Stephen Holly show. I think it was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, and they were saying that. Oh no, sorry, tell a lie. No, I did watch the Stephen Holly show, but it wasn't from that. It was Steve did Steve did like a little live link, on Twitter, and he was
Yeah,
saying, I don't know if you saw it, but he was saying that obviously the fans were fantastic pre-match, and there was loads of optimism and stuff. But apparently, and I can't speak because I wasn't there, but apparently the atmosphere at the ground is very very tetchy, very very nervous, and obviously that's understandable because we do need points on the board as quickly as possible, and unfortunately we're not really seeing the performances on the pitch to really get the fans going. But do you see that being a problem, Pete, in games to come? I mean, obviously there's only so much the fans can do, and Steve was right when he said you can't put any blame on the fans whatsoever, but do you think the players being in that atmosphere, being in that cauldron, if you like, where everyone's just nervous and on edge, do you think that's helping them, or do you think? I know there's probably not a lot we can do about it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's nothing, there's nothing that we can do about that. Look, we're all going to feel that way because we're so desperate to get points on the board. We're so desperate for the team to win. We're not doing it. The fans in the stadium are not doing it to put pressure on the lads. That it's just nobody can help it. It's just our emotions at the moment because we're so desperate to stay in the league. We're so desperate to get points on the board that our nervousness is for the players. But look, these are professional footballers at elite level. You look at some of these players, you look at likes of Fabian Schär that played at a Euros, for example. You know what I mean? Like they're experienced players. They should be able to play under these conditions. People like Jamal Lascelles, Martin Dubravka, who also played at a Euros. Like they know this stadium. It's not like they're new to playing at St James's Park. They should be able to play under these situations. We need leadership. And there's question marks over Jamal Lascelles, but we need leadership, not just from the captain. We need leadership from everybody. We need it from everybody, including the manager, including the backroom staff and the players that are on the sidelines. We need leadership from those guys to see us through. I'm sure we'll get into it, but we've dropped far too many points from winning positions, and it's not good enough. It isn't good enough. And we can spend all the money that we want in January, but if we don't turn that tide in turning those, taking the lead into 3 points, if we don't do that quickly, we're going to go down, and we're going to deserve to go down if we don't turn the tide. But last point from me before we move on, like it's already been said, we've played Watford, we've played Norwich, we've played Burnley, we've played Leeds, we've played Southampton all at home, Brentford, and we haven't won any games. We're now going to have to go to teams that we're not expected to pick up points, and we're going to have to go to those teams and get 3 points. So if we can't deal with Watford at home, and see them out at 1-0, right? I'm worried about where we're going to go. We're going to go to the likes of West Ham. They've got Liverpool to come to us. We've got Arsenal to come to us. We've got lots of other teams. We've got to go to the Etihad. We've got teams, Leicester, come to St James's Park. We've got to go and get points from them. We've got to play Everton home and away. We need to win both. Like, we're not in a position now to think a point's enough, because it's not. Big ask now of all the players and the manager. I still have hope. I still have hope that the recruitment will be right and that we'll do enough to stay in the league. But it's on them now. We've done our part.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I share your sentiments. I mean, I'm kind of, me personally, I'm kind of preparing myself for relegation. But do I think it's over? No, I think we can still do it. But there's got to be, we need some new players. There's no doubt about it. We need some new players, and we need to start picking points up before it's too late. But anyway, on that note, let's hear what some of the fans have got to say. Okay, so our first guest is a regular, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome on Alan. How you doing,
Alan? Pete, I go with a lot of your sentiments, Pete and Chris. I mean, walking out the ground on Saturday, I could have committed Harry Carey. I was gutted, absolutely gutted, like we all were. And we all knew what was going to happen. 1 win in 22 games is like a slap in the face to wake you up. It was one of them light bulb moments, I think. And, relegation is a very, very strong possibility now, lads. And we've got to face the fact. Regarding the game, I think Trippier was a class support. just one instance in the second half, lads. A ball came across, and it was a dangerous crossover, and he just chested it down to Dubravna, and it just calmed the whole situation down. And everybody around us said, "What kind of player have we got here?" He was a class above.
Yeah.
And I hate to take a smile off your faces, lads. Your favourite player yourselves, but he was dross, absolute dross. I heard on one of the podcasts after the game, one of the young lads says he played well for 60 minutes and then he went to bits. He had nothing to do for 60 minutes, lads.
Yeah.
And when he started that crossfield pass after 60 minutes, that nearly led in Sissoko to equalise, was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it was awful.
Now, lads, I want to know if anybody could find out how many balls does the Cells pass forward in a game? It's sideways or back. I would love to know the facts on that, the stats. Every game, it's sideways or back. And when he did it in the second half, it went straight to a Watford player. And he loses confidence straight away. It gets to him. Once he made that bad pass, he went to bits, lads. And he's not the only one that passes back, though, lads. Sean Longstaff, Shelby, Murphy, the main instinct is to pass the ball back. Now, we're going to be playing Leeds, who their first instinct is to go forward. We're going to be a massive, going forward like Saturday's game, lads, we're going to be a massive pressure for 90 minutes because that team will never stop for 90 minutes going forward. And our instinct of most of the players in our team is to pass the ball back. And that's one little thing that Eddie Howe and his management hasn't changed. The mentality, he's right on that. As soon as we scored, the mentality was, we'll sit on the lead, let Watford come to us. It doesn't work like that. We should be going for the jugular. We should be going for the second goal. And that's why so many games where we've been ahead, we've drew or lost because we're not prepared, because we're midfield, lads. As much as we've always talked about the defence being weak, we're midfield is the problem. It has been for 4 years. Shelby and Longstaff, they're too slow. And he is too slow, Chris.
Do you know what, Alan? Yeah, I completely agree. I had a little WhatsApp rant at the weekend, which people have heard, and for me now, and some people may hear this and think I'm off me barnet, but for me, the biggest problem is central midfield at the moment.
Yes,
I know we need defenders. We need defenders, and I'm not denying that. But our midfield is just a joke. It's just so easy to play against. I mean, I watched. I don't know if you saw it, Alan. I watched Leeds at the weekend against West Ham.
I watched the highlights, Chris.
Yeah. And it was two forward-thinking teams, and I thought if we come up against either of these teams, we're in big trouble. Declan Rice was just all over the pitch, and then you've got Rafinha on the right for Leeds, and he's tearing it up and down, and he's on the right, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is it going to be Dummett? Is it going to be Lewis? Yeah. You know, and obviously St. Maximin's not going to be tracking and helping out. So straight away, I was just looking at it, just thinking, oh God. So
I mean, Chris, the first 5-10 minutes it was in the game, there's a loose ball on the edge of our box. Shelby, my gran could have run faster to that ball, and he got booked. He was so slow, it was like an oil tanker trying to turn, and he gets booked. And you think, that's after 5 minutes, he's so ponderous. And Sean, bless him, I've been his fan, I wanted to be a number 10, but he's now, game after game, he looked lost on Saturday at times, lads. He played well at times, but he got bullied a lot. Joe Linton, I thought, had another good game, although again, he should have scored, lads. Should have scored. Yep. Not maybe the first one, that was instinctive, where I hit the post and bar, but definitely the second one, he should have scored. And that goal would have settled we down massively. I know people get on ACM's back, but hey up, lads, he scored the goal, and it was a wonderful goal. That's the positives. That was a wonderful goal. And you know, maybe the older news lads, obviously, Ginola and Robert were exactly like that. And then when they left, everybody raved about them. But when we were here at the club, it was, why didn't Ginola do that? Why didn't Robert do that? And he's not passing the ball. The Mavericks, lads, it's that bit of magic to do. and then they want others to get involved in the game, and we haven't got the squad. That's where I'm, deflated from. But I'll never give up. There's points on the board to be won, and like you said, Pete, it's all about the transfers from now until July. We've only got one Premier League game, Leeds, and if we get a draw, a win, then we're still in the mix. We've got to get points on the board. It's never I've never prayed for a game being postponed as much as my life, Pete, as the game tomorrow night. So it just gives me that breathing space because Watford play Norwich, and you're hoping for a draw, obviously, for that game. So the gap won't be big. And again, I've always said it, Pete, Chris, it's a Fulham situation again. Until don't get out the bottom four, and we've missed a massive chance on Saturday to get out the bottom four, we're relegated. Until that happens, till we get out, we're relegated. And I'm like you, Chris, what you said, I'm resigned to relegation, but I want to fight to the bitter end and see if there is a chance of getting out of this.
Really good points out there you've made, Alan. But this question's come up from Chad Leach, and I think it's a really, really good question. There's loads of great questions have been coming in, and people watching at home, please bring them in. But what's your response to that? And I'd like to hear from Pete as well on it, because obviously with the news that Rafa Benitez, he was sacked, wasn't he, yesterday? And I'm just interested to know. And again, I'm not linking this to Rafa. I'm just purely pointing that out because people are talking about him.
I'm glad you brought it up, Chris. Actually, this one.
Yeah. How long do you give Eddie Howe before he deserves criticism? Bearing in mind, are we 10 games into his? Are we 10 games in?
I think personally, lads, this is just my opinion, and a lot of people have been saying that and saying, how long is it before we criticise Eddie Howe? It's got to be to the end of the season, lads. And if we're relegated, then, because I've said it before, Pete, you can turn your furniture around, and if it's shite, it's shite. You can turn it around until you go to Marks and Spencer's and Harrods and get good players in, and then you see how he works with good players, then it's fine. Yeah. But if you're working with crap, and the majority of them are crap, you can bring on Miggy, you can bring on people, but these same players have failed. We're in this mess because of the 25 players that are there, apart from 2, and you've got to give Chris Wood and obviously Trippier time. But I've heard this a lot over the last couple of 48 hours. Oh, Howe's, he's only won 1 game in 12, and when nobody wants to criticise him. If this was Bruce, he would be hounded out. I'm thinking, but that crap players, lads, everybody out there, they're rubbish, majority of them. They're not Premier League standards. And if they have been, which they've kept in the league for 4 years, they're now old and they're getting to the end of their life. And thank them very much. Like Matt Ritchie, great professional, will not say a bad word, but he shouldn't be at the club. He should not be at the club now. And it's because he's not good enough at this level anymore. And there's Shelby, Hayden, Longstaff, Murphy aren't good enough at this level anymore, or have been good enough at this level anymore. And we need to get at least 3 more players in and see where it takes you. I accept the point. A lot, especially the younger people, will be frustrated. Eddie's got to go. Look at Rafa. He's had 6 months at a toxic club, and he had great words to say after his sacking. People are losing patience far too quickly. I'll give Eddie Howe as much time as he needs. Once he gets 6 or 7 players next year, whether it be the Championship or the Premier League, and they're playing the same way, then I'll start complaining. But until then, lads, we'll be complaining right to the end of the season, no matter what. Until he gets 3 more players and puts them in the team, I will not judge Eddie Howe, because unfortunately, people might say, well, he should be getting a tune out of them. No, I'm sorry. A lot of them have lost a lot of confidence, and it's very, very hard to get it back when you know that. I thought a lot of the players on Saturday really knew that for a lot of them, it's the end of the road for this club, for them, because they ain't good enough. We clapped them off, and I was one of them, but I thought a lot of them shouldn't be at the club, and I'm afraid to know it. And Saturday's game is going to be pivotal, lads. If we get steamrolled, which I actually do suspect, to be honest with you, Pete, Chris, I do think we'll get beat 3 or 4-1, something like that on Saturday. Unless we get a centre-back in and a midfield player, I do suspect we'll get, because of the energy level of Leeds have got. Having Shaw and themselves, they puffed and panted for 70 minutes, and then we're running out of gas again. And damn it, that's where I agree with fans if they criticise Eddie Howe's substitutes. Dummett should have been substitute after 70 minutes. He was running on empties. And the cross came over at the end on his side because he was absolutely shattered. Things like that, I can accept fans, but the one people say he was not the man I've heard, and, you know, we should be really going down his throat. No, I'm sorry. You're working, a lot of the players they're working with crap. I'm sorry to say it. They're working with crap. That's my answer to that question about Eddie Howe. End of season, starting next season. If he's got a lot of good players in and he's still not doing it, whether it be the Championship or the Premier League, then you get rid. What
are you saying, Pete?
I think we had this conversation the other day, and I was very, very clear that I don't like the criticism of Eddie Howe. I think it's very, very disrespectful to criticise him. Look, we've known for over a year that this squad of players are not good enough. That this squad of players are scrimping and scraping to stay in the Premier League season upon season. And the one thing I'll say is that, like, you can only judge a manager once he's had the opportunity to build a team how he wants it. So the fact that he's been able to go in and sign a couple of players, and then he'll sign more in the window. I won't judge Eddie Howe until after this window's done.
Yeah.
And I will only judge him once he's brought his players in, the players that he's identified, and he's had an opportunity to work with them. So from February onwards, I will judge Eddie Howe. And if it gets towards the end of the season and we've brought in 4, 5, 6, 7 players, however many it is, and he's had a chance to work with these better players, and we've invested significantly in them, and if he's not been able to keep us in the league, or we're still putting in these same type of performances, then I will then criticism is more than sort of acceptable to be pointed in his direction, in my opinion. You know, the frustrations of Saturday is, in my opinion, is not down to Eddie Howe. So you could question him on his. But who else is there really that you can bring on? He brought on Miggy Almiron. He brought on Jacob Murphy. Jacob Murphy cost £12 million. Miggy Almiron cost the best part of £20 million. Like, you would naturally bring those players on anyway. You know, who else has he got? Jeff Hendrick?
Yeah.
Who else has he got to bring on? He hasn't got anybody else to bring on. And the mistakes, the goal that we conceded, you know, that wasn't down to Eddie Howe. That was down to players that are just not good enough, in my opinion. And that's just the way it is, you know. So for me, I'm not pointing the finger at Eddie Howe right now. I think he's in a very, very difficult situation, and like I say, look, Alan, you've hit the nail on the head, really.
Yeah.
The players are just not good enough, and until we ship out a lot of these players, right, it's not going to get any better. So, in my opinion, you've got players like Sean Longstaff that are starting games that shouldn't be. You've got players like Jamal Lascelles that ideally you wouldn't want him starting games. You wouldn't even really want Fabian Schär starting games. If you had the choice of Diego Carlos and one other centre-back coming in, they would be your partnership. And both Schär and Lascelles would be on the bench. You know, you could argue that...
Yes, I am from Limpton, lads. I am from Limpton. The lads, yes, I am from Limpton. Yeah.
You could argue that there's one or two other players in the team that you would maybe have on the bench rather than starting. You know, an attacking midfielder, or even a sort of a high-profile striker. I don't know, but there are players that we need to replace in this team to play better. And I just wanted to raise a point, because someone mentioned the question about Chris Wood. on Saturday and said it was an underwhelming performance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he was left high and dry on Saturday. He was not utilised at all. When you've got a focal point, and I said this on the reaction show on Saturday, if you've got a focal point, someone that you can target, you can ping a ball into me, you know he's going to hold it up. He's going to be big and strong, get the flick-ons, hold the ball up strong, create attacks, and you're not giving him the ball. What is the point of playing him? Like, he was just absolutely wasted in the first half and in the second. I can't remember how many times he offered short for the ball to hold the ball and bring people into play. People like St. Maximin, rather than giving him the ball, was then trying to take on 2 or 3 men, losing the ball, and then they're on the attack. You know, you've got to be able to feed a striker like that into his feet, into his chest, into his head to bring other players into the game. You're not going to do that. What is the point of spending £25 million on signing that type of player? Eddie Howe said he was delighted to sign him because he needs to utilise his strengths. The players on the pitch did not utilise his strengths, so it was a waste of time. And I felt sorry for him because he was bang up for that. He was bang up for that game on Saturday, and you could tell he was bang up for that game. But if you're not going to give him the ball, it's a waste of time.
Couldn't have said it better, Pete. Could not have said it better. I mean, one of the comments by Ramondo was, if I'm pronouncing it right, was about ACM not being a team player. These Mavericks are never team players, Ramondo. They're not. They never are. They're, if we had a decent enough squad, for me, ACM would be an impact player. He'd come on with 25, 30 minutes to go. If our squad was good enough, Pete, if it was really like Man City's, ACM would be an impact player coming on like Jack Grealish at Man City. He would, seriously. But that's light years ahead now because he is one of our star performers. And unfortunately, he is lazy and he's not a team player. But the likes of him are great for 20, 25, 30 minutes to bring on. I mean, the frightening thing is what's happening with Joe Willock. You know, I mean, 25 million. He's played poorly all season, and he doesn't look. He's not even starting now, lads. And it is frightening that he would be a box-to-box type of player that we need to support Wood and Wilson, but he's not even getting a game now because his confidence or whatever's happening behind the scenes is so low, which is a disappointing thing. But I'll leave it like that, lads, because Pete, you couldn't have said it better about Wood. The lad brings in people into play, but if you're not crossing, where ACM didn't cross very much for Wood, Trippier doing one or two crosses, but not enough to bring the lad into play. But I agree. It all depends, lads. Seriously, our season in the next 2 weeks, who we bring in. And we need to bring in 2 or 3 players. And then I'll judge how, again, I know I'm like a record at the end of the season. But I think a lot of fans are jumping on the bandwagon straight away about Eddie Howe's not the man. And I find it sad because look at what's happened to Benitez. He's had no money to spend. You know, Chris, living in Liverpool, the fans were against him from the start. You're on a bad run of form like that. There was only one outcome he was going to go. I personally don't want Rafa back. I know 1 or 2 people like Holly would probably think, you know, should want Benitez back, but I'd stick where Howe. He's the future, and I'd give him all my backing right to the end, you know. But it'll change this time next year, lads. If we're in the Championship and we're struggling with a lot of decent players, then the attitude will be like everybody else. But
no, you're absolutely right, Alan. Absolutely right. But I'm going to have to end it there, mate, because I've got loads of people waiting. But as always, Alan, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem,
I'm going to give you one of these, mate.
Thanks a lot, lads.
Thank you very much, Alan. You take care, mate.
Will
Catch
do.
up soon. Great points as always by Alan there, Pete.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think we could have carried on talking for another hour with Alan because he always makes some great points. But like you said, we've got, other than Alan, who's a legend, we've got some other legends in the green room ready to come on. So
we most certainly have. We most certainly have. And on that note, Pete, I'm gonna bring our next guest in. Okay.
Yeah.
So big welcome to Nathan. How you doing, Nathan?
All right. Am I legend status already? This is only my second time on it. I'm already at legend status.
Hey, your last call was quality, mate. You're already up there. Anybody that takes their time to come on the fans forum is a legend in my eyes, because you
respect that.
It's not easy to come on and voice your opinion on a show like this. We've got 250 watching, amazing people in the chat as well, as always. It's not easy to do. So yeah, legend status. For sure.
Great. Before I start, I want to give a quick shout out to Alan, who was just on. He gave us a shout out a couple of weeks ago when I missed it because I was working away. He gave us a shout out, and it absolutely made my day. But what was even better was he actually called you two old fogies.
What?
Yeah.
He did. He called you two old fogies. It was afterwards. You two were going. Was he talking to me or was he talking to you? You talking? Who was he calling old fogies there?
Yeah, he definitely me.
Yeah, he was like joining us both in with him, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. You new lads were like, what? Us? No.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I remember that.
I'll try.
I was about to revoke his legend status.
Right, lads. I know you're busy and there's people waiting, so I'll try fly through my points the best I can because I've got a fair few.
Good man.
I wanted to keep a close eye on Kieran Trippier when I went because this was the first. I didn't go to the Cambridge game, so I was very intrigued to see what he was like. I was watching him in the warm up. He is just an absolute standout. I mean, even a 30-year-old, he's quick, agile. He's such a good player. He gets up so well for a little lad as well. He's so good in the air. He reads the play better than anyone. And I can see why Atletico was so sad to see him go. The only critique I have of him is he didn't get the ball in the box enough. If you've said this, Pete, you said this before, that Chris Wood's strength is he's so good in the air, but if you're not giving him it, it will be a bit of an underwhelming performance because you ain't giving it him in the air, And what was interesting for me is watching Dubravka kick the ball out from whether it be a goal kick or in his hands, he was still aiming for Joe Linton, which shocked me because I thought he would aim for Chris Wood's head, which it just baffled me a little bit. But I think the big point was you could drive a double-decker bus right through the middle of our team on Saturday, and I think the spine of the team is just shocking. We constantly talk about centre-half, and we did need one on Saturday, and I think that did cost us 3 points. But I think, Chris, you said this before, that a centre midfielder is just as important for me because you look at Longstaff, you look at Shelvey, and they don't offer much defensively. Maybe a bit more than attacking, but attacking-wise, I think we've had one assist off a centre midfielder the whole season.
It's terrible.
It's not
going
good
forward.
enough.
They don't offer anything, mate. Don't offer anything going forward. The three of them: Joe Linton, Sean Longstaff, and Shelvey. I mean, with Shelvey, you could argue he's got that ball in him, hasn't he? He can pick a pass fantastically. But if you're talking about Joe Linton and Sean, attacking-wise, what do they offer?
Nothing. Yeah, nothing. And it is worrying, and I think that's something we need to look at. There's talk of Dele Alli coming in, and he's a creative player. He splits opinion for sure, but for me, that would be a great loan deal for us. Before the goal, when we were at St James, it wasn't so much quiet, but towards the 30th to 35th minute, for me, there was a nervous energy. You could really smell the nerves in the crowd. And it didn't so much go quiet, but people start to get quite tense because you think, well, there's already half an hour gone, lads, and we haven't had a shot on goal, on target. And there was an air of nervousness until the 47th minute. And when we scored, which felt like out of nothing, which it obviously is with Maximan because that's how he thrives, we just went up 4 or 5 notches. St James's was rocking, and the thing with me was the lads just. Howe mentioned it in his interview afterwards that they just wanted it. Apparently, they wanted to win that bad that they just went in their shell, and we sat back and sank rather than pushing on for a second. And you're so much more comfortable on 2 goals, And we sank and we brought it on ourselves. And to be honest, I blame that on a weak team mentality. We can't see out games, and it was like that under Bruce, and it's like that under Howe, which. I don't think is a very fair reflection of Howe, but 21 points dropped from winning positions with 16 to 18 of them points being at home. So you don't want to play the what if. Maybe, you can't change the past, but if we kept hold of them 21 points, lads, we'd be seventh. We'd be seventh in the league if we kept hold of them 21 points. You don't expect all the 21 points to be held, of course, but you can see that we have the quality to get in them positions, but it's the mental toughness, and it stems from bad leadership. Lascelles was the one to crumble when we were 1-0 up.
I just want to interrupt you there, mate, because it's a fantastic point you made. And I was speaking to the lads about this myself, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So you're right when you say that apparently we've dropped 21 points this season. And if you compare that to Norwich, who have dropped no points from winning positions. So they've not had that opportunity. Now, obviously, from our point of view, that's really frustrating, isn't it? Because like you rightly say, we'd be seventh in the league or something. But do you take any encouragement from that in terms of we're getting ourselves in the position, but we're just not finishing it off? Like you rightly said, then we were 1-0 up at Watford at the weekend, and you could tell we were all just screaming out for whether it be at home or in the stadium, just get that second goal, just bury this game. And obviously, we've been caught out yet again because we didn't do that. But do you take any encouragement from that?
You do, because we get in a position where we are leading the game, but it's all about mental toughness and capacity and confidence, and it's just something we severely lack. So there is the positive that we do get in them positions, but it comes down to the toughness, and I think it stems from, like I say, the leadership and the confidence of the team, and we lack it, and it is worrying. But hopefully, with new signings, say this Diego Carlos, for instance, it will lift the team. And if we do get in that position, you could see it in Trippier, the experience. He was even looking at Lascelles saying, "Chill out, it's okay, we're 1-0 up." He was looking at our captain saying that. He showed his experience and saying, "Look, we are in a winning position. Calm down, lads. It's okay." But the arse is clenched, and we're getting a winning position. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what to do. And a couple of worrying things is, for me, coming out of that Cambridge game and now the Watford game, before them games, I think behind the scenes with the transfers, we had that air of, right, this guy's worth 38 million. We'll offer 28 and somewhere we'll meet them halfway. But now we're at that point where we've lost to Cambridge, we've drawn with Watford, which is a hell of a hit. But now it's like, he's worth 35 million. We need to offer 45 because we need him now. We need these players now. We can't be waiting around. Given it's only one more game before the transfer window closes, we need these guys in. And I think it's desperation station for us. It's a lot of negatives, I said, but I do pride on trying to be optimistic. So I will say that there was a booing again after the game. The war flags, everything before the game, we were fantastic. We have backed this team even after the shit show we see. It's fantastic, but the booing does not achieve anything. I know it's 14 years of frustration that we've held on to, and all we want is success. We're drooling for it, but by success I mean just winning games at this point. But booing does not achieve a thing. We have the backing. We have Eddie Howe, which is fantastic. We should not doubt him. I think we should back him to the hills no matter what. But booing does not achieve anything. I mean, for me, I stayed until the full-time whistle. I didn't clap him because I thought the performance was pretty poor, but I just left. There was nothing achieved in booing. I think until we're relegated officially, there is always hope. And I think we just need to back the lads and back Eddie Howe as much as we can for the remainder of the season. And yeah, that's as many points as I'm going to make tonight.
Mate, fantastic.
Leave it on a positive note. I'll try my best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a little question for you actually, and it's from a comment that came in from one of the people in the chat. But first of all, I just want to gather Pete's thoughts on what you've said there, Nathan. Pete, what do you think about the points Nathan's made there? I mean, he's made some really valid ones, especially about being in winning positions, and then obviously failing to get that second goal, to secure the 3 points.
Yeah. He's made a really good point, particularly about that. And I was listening to that, and I found myself sort of nodding. The reference to the arse clinching was absolutely right. That's how it felt. That's how it felt, and it's a mentality that's been there for a long time. This is not just this season or last season. It's been there for a long time. And it's a mentality that's ingrained in some of these players. And that's why I'd mentioned about some of these players just need to be replaced. Even some of the half decent ones just need to be replaced because they've all got that ingrained negative mentality in that they don't want to go past the halfway line, or if they do, they start shaking because they're not used to it. They're not used to being told. And part of that comes from Rafa Benitez's management, because he built us to be very defensive minded and to soak up a lot of pressure and then counter attack. We were built on that, and Steve Bruce then just came in and just destroyed that and just destroyed everyone else's confidence, but in the players and in the club. But for me personally, that's something that needs to be managed better. I mean, I'm talking the obvious here, but it is, and it starts with the manager. The manager needs to manage that better. It's okay him saying that in because I listened to his interview after the game, and it's okay him saying that. But there are things that could have been done if he'd have saw that happening on the pitch to encourage the players to push further forward. There were certain players on the pitch that should be encouraging us to play further forward, and Jamal Lascelles is one of them. Jamal Lascelles likes to play deep because he plays within himself. He's not confident as a player at the moment, and it's been very, very clear. So he likes to sit deep because he likes to sit in, and that's where he feels comfortable. But if you're a top defender, you're moving your players up. You're encouraging them just to play higher up the pitch. And as you could see, as the game went on, we dropped deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's why we concede goals late on. Because in our mentality, it's about, right, we've got one goal, we hold what we have. We just sit back in and soak up. We're not good enough to do that. We're just not. Until we've got the players that come in to make us good enough to do that, we're just not good enough. And that mentality has to change. We talked on Saturday about potentially bringing on someone like Matt Ritchie, and not necessarily for his ability on the ball, but his leadership. The fact that he will get at players and he will have a go at players and he will encourage them. And for that 15, 20 minutes, he will run his socks off and he'll run himself into the ground for the team. That may have been a better option than bringing Miggy on just to direct things from that left-hand side, or bringing him on instead of Murphy and playing him further up on the right-hand side, just to add that little bit of leadership in the team, because that's what we need right now. We need players that can lead us through difficult moments. Now, what we're looking at doing is bringing quality players in, like Trippier. But what that quality player brings is experience. It brings know-how of winning matches. I'm not surprised that we're looking at a 28-year-old centre-back in Diego Carlos, who's an experienced centre-back that's played at the top level, Champions League football, fighting for La Liga right now. I'm not surprised that we're bringing in a player like that. I'm also not surprised that we're linked with Dusan Zapata, who's a top striker at Atalanta, played Champions League football. He is a very, very good player at 30 years old. I'm not surprised that we're bringing in those players, because what those players will bring into the club, if we are lucky enough to bring them in, is a winning mentality. And that's what we need right now. We don't need these young players. Ekitike would be great because he brings you the unknown. But what you need right now is players that have got a winning mentality, that know how to win matches. That's what we need in order to stay in the league. And we need to think. We need to think and pigeonhole our mentality into just these 18 games. That's all that matters right now. And we need to put our finances and our mindset into these 18 games, because us staying in the league means everything right now. We move our project back 2 or 3 years if we get relegated. A lot of fans are quite comfortable with being relegated. Like, I'm just happy that we've got new owners, but ultimately we want to stay in the league because we want that project to move forward quickly.
Yeah, of course.
And in order for it to move forward quickly, we need to stay in the league. So we need to pigeonhole our mentality to stay in this league. But we need players with a winning mentality that breed confidence in the rest of the team to come in and do a job for us.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, Pete. Absolutely agree with you there, mate. I'm just trying to look for this comment. I'm probably not going to be able to find it now because that's just sod's law. But I do remember what the comment was, Nathan. And this is what I wanted to ask you. And again, I'm relaying this back because it's something that we've discussed off air, myself and Pete and the loaded lads. What do you think about the idea? Some are suggesting, and I saw this on Twitter actually on Sunday, and I've kind of that mindset myself now. What do you think about the idea that we're currently now in a mini league of 4? So, and what I mean by that, Nathan, is that if you look at the league now, it's ourselves, Norwich, Burnley, and Watford. And the idea is, as long as we finish top of that mini league of 4, then we're fine. And if you look at it like that, it does give you a little bit of positivity. Well, it did me, because I was thinking, I think we're going to finish above Norwich, and if we don't, you know, as Daz said, you know, we absolutely deserve to go down. So you'd think we finished above Norwich. Burnley, we already know we've taken their top striker from them, and you know, I know they've got a few games in hand, but they've still got to go and win those games in order to get past us. And then obviously we saw what Watford are all about at the weekend, and that's why it's so frustrating, because really the game was there for the taking, and we should have took the 3 points. Obviously we've only ended up with a point, which Watford will be really happy with, but they've still got to go out and win matches. I mean, what do you think about that comment there? So I found it now. So Paul Hill, we are now in a mini league of 4. How do you see that?
No, I agree with Paul. I think looking at it as a 4, it's a lot less overwhelming as a whole to look at the 4. I mean, like you've mentioned, I think Norwich are a very poor team, but it actually really hit me when I looked at the table when I left the stadium to see Norwich were above us. I know they have a game in hand, but they are above us. Burnley, yes, they've got games in hand, but there will be a fixture congestion there for them, especially if they get tomorrow night postponed. And Watford, they were a physical team, but there wasn't much to set the world alight. I think the thing is with our team is, I'm going off track a little bit here, but we always play better as underdogs. I've always said that about this squad. We always play better against teams and matches we do not expect to play well or get a result from. And for them 4 teams, yes, I really do think looking at that is a better perspective. But Howe has said, and I've tried, he says we just look at it as a game at a time, try not to check other, fixtures, etc., which is what I'm trying to do, because it can get because if you think, well, if Norwich lose this and we win this, it can get a bit overwhelming, and you sort of overthink it a little bit. So you've got to really just try and focus on your team, like focus on Newcastle and what's to come next. But it's very easy to get sunk into that whole malarkey of who plays what when. If you just focus on your team and winning the next game, I think if we won the next 2 or 3 games on the bounce, that is a very hard ask against a very good-looking Leeds team on the yesterday, which you mentioned, Chris, against West Ham. Everton midweek, now they've lost Rafa. Well, I say they've got rid of Rafa, and whoever they get in, they might have a new manager bounce. I was very much hoping Rafa would stay for that game from the way they were playing under him. And then Aston Villa, who are a very good team under Gerrard and building a very good squad. But say if by some miracle we get 9 points from that game, the table looks very, very different. It's because we're starving for a win. If we get a couple of wins going, that league looks very different. It looks very different for me. So, yes, it's a good way to look at it. But for me, I would say it's very easy to get sunk into them, other results from the other teams around us. But you just got to focus on your own club, which is Newcastle United, and winning the next game.
Yeah, completely agree. Absolutely agree, Nathan. Listen, mate, as always, thank you very much for coming on. It is most appreciated, and you definitely deserve one of these, mate. Really enjoyed having
thanks
you on,
for
mate.
on. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy and everything, so I'll let you crack on.
Nice
and
one.
I'll hopefully see you next week. All right.
Yeah, take care, Nathan. Thank you very much,
lads.
mate.
All the best.
Do you know what? I found Nathan quite upbeat there. I like that. It is quite easy, isn't it, to kind of talk about all the negatives and stuff like that. But Nathan's looking at it from a positive outlook, I feel. I know he's highlighted a few things that obviously we're all worried about and we all know that need changing. But at the same time, he also was saying, it's not all doom and gloom. We can get out of it and stuff. So I appreciated his positivity there, Pete.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things he touched on was going into the Leeds game, and there's been quite a lot of negativity about the Leeds game in the build up to it, and I suppose rightly so after the result on Saturday, but particularly when Newcastle fans are watching the Leeds game against West Ham on Sunday, and obviously they won and they played well. But I was talking to the sort of the Southern Mags on our chat, and they're obviously talking about how well Leeds are playing and that they're winning and blah blah blah. And we have to remember that game was set up for Leeds perfectly. Like, that was badly tactically put together by West Ham. That is the perfect scenario for Leeds United. That game will not go the same way on Saturday, in that what Leeds United like is a team that comes out and attacks them, full frontal attacks Leeds United, because they like to hit on the counter attack.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that Leeds United don't like, and what we did at St James's Park, is not necessarily sit on the 18-yard box and soak things up, but what we were a tight unit. And the one thing that we did is change tactic partway through the game, and they did not get through after that point. If we make things tight and hard to break down, and we don't go fully at them, and we hit them on the counter attack, I think we've got a great chance of winning the game. Now, you've got to remember, they've still got a lot of injury problems, and I think they picked up another couple of injuries after that game yesterday as well. I think they had like 6 or 7 youth players on the bench, which hopefully will go in our favour on Saturday. And they've got talented players, Rafinha being one of them. He's a top quality player. But I do believe that we can hurt Leeds United. I think what we need to do certainly is, I think Chris Wood could be the difference. Chris Wood could be the difference on Saturday, because his physicality and his ability to really kind of ruffle some feathers in that Leeds defence, that is not a great defence at all by any means. I think he could really, really cause some problems. Set pieces is another way that we can cause problems, because they are not good from set pieces. So there are little nuggets there that we can really take advantage of, but we need to be resolute. We need to be tight in a formation, and we really need to kind of stop them from playing. Someone like Paul Dummett will be important to that. A new centre back would be even better for that, and it's a new centre midfielder would make that even better. But this current crop of players can still go to Leeds United and win. I've got no doubt about that whatsoever. So although there's a negativity about the Leeds game yesterday, that actual game and the way it was set up was perfect for Leeds United. Not every game is, and we've seen that this season, that they've got pummeled because the tactics have been all wrong for Leeds United to play their style. We know Leeds play one way. So if we stop Leeds playing that way, they haven't got a plan B. That's the one thing with Bielsa. He's a fantastic manager, but a fantastic manager with plan A. He hasn't got a plan B. We know that Eddie Howe is a better tactician, because he has a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. If
he can adapt, can't he?
Yeah, if he adapts and he plays his plan B or plan C to counteract Leeds' way of playing, I do believe that we can pick them off and get a result. I really do.
Yeah. Do you know what, Pete? I'm going to take that opportunity to just quickly run through the sponsors. So I will do that right now. Okay, big shout out to our favourite, Spider VPN. Big shout out to the lads for all your internet security. If you do a search on Google, Spider VPN will come at the top of the search. They've been with us now for God knows how long, isn't it, Pete? It's many months. So big shout out to the lads at Spider VPN, and thank you for their continued support. We also have skipsandbins.com. They can be contacted on telephone number 0800 25 45 25 free. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website is www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contact free, and pay as you go waste collection. You nearly fooled me there, Pete. I lost my word at the bottom.
My bad.
Big shout out as well to L&G Family Funeral Directors. They can be contacted on 0191 389 7245. Also a shout out to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists. Their website is www.thegohd.com. Also a shout out to Arcot Interiors. If you're looking for a new kitchen, get in touch with the lads at Arcot Interiors, and I'm sure they'll be able to do you a good deal. I've already seen our good friend John Justice Allen in the chat. Big shout out to John. He's from qtechshop.co.uk, makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. Also a shout out to Jab Signature, who do all the posters and flyers for the show. Similarly, a big shout out as well to Media Art, who do all the videos. And if you haven't subscribed already, why not? Get yourself down onto the subscribe button and click it and become a member of NUFC Matters. Don't forget, if you're liking the show, please click, should I say, please click the like button. Keep your comments flooding in. We absolutely love it. We love interacting with you all who watch. And don't forget that you can share this video with your friends and family for anyone who you think might be interested. If you've not had a chance to watch this live, don't forget that you can catch up on iTunes and Spotify, whether you're out walking the dog or you're in the car. Stick the show on and have a listen. If you would like to become a member, an NUFC cult member, make sure you scan this code currently on the screen, and you can receive a membership pack. I believe it's £25. And on there, you will see that you can get a couple of mugs, pens, scarf, bag, all kinds. So it's nice to be part of the cult.
You know what, Chris?
You're going to pull me now.
No. Go back to that other picture. Right?
Go on.
I think we should have one of these.
I know we should.
Yeah. Come on,
shouldn't we? A
cult
mug.
You know what I mean? Come on. Sort of that.
Look how faded my mug is. Look at that.
Jesus,
making it feel sorry for me now.
Just for the faded mug alone. Come on, Steve.
I know.
Doesn't that make sense?
It looks nice though, doesn't it? It does look at a nice little package.
Very
looks
good.
really good. We've got Steve Rafe and Newcastle Legends present an afternoon with Pedro. So Peter Beardsley, Newcastle and England Legends, Sunday the 30th of January 2022 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. And don't forget, after the match, the Dog and Parrot go and see Malcolm McDonald and Steve, where I think they do a pre and a post match, don't they, at the Dog and Parrot, Pete?
Yeah, that's
right. I think I'm right in saying that.
Don't forget on Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday, isn't it? It did say he was going Saturday. Yeah. So get yourself down the Dog and Parrot. I've been actually. It's a nice pub. Really nice, and not far away. Walk from the ground, so nice and handy. I think it's right by Newcastle Central Station, isn't it? The Dog and Parrot. I think it's opposite.
I've never been.
Yeah, I think it's opposite Central Station. Anyone in the chat tell me if that's wrong, but I'm sure it's opposite Central Station.
I was meant to go, but for the Brentford,
you were in a bad way, weren't you?
And I was an absolute mess. I only got to the ground at like 10 to 3, so I didn't get a chance to. I think I probably woke up at 1 o'clock when I was meant to be there. So yeah, my bad.
That was the Brentford game, that wasn't it? Yeah. Don't forget to continue to support the NUFC Fans Food Bank. The website address is above there, www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. Matchday bucket. The support is always gratefully received. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I always say it, as does Pete, Loaded HQ, which is with myself, Pete, Daz, Martin, and Richie. We've hit our 2,000 subscribers, which we're absolutely delighted with. I know. So now we're on the road to 3,000. So if you enjoy listening to me and Pete and you want to hear more, get yourself onto Loaded HQ. We've got a massive week coming up this week, haven't we, Pete? Got to say, particularly on Thursday. Anyone who hasn't watched the FLTS show, which is the fully loaded transfer show, you don't want to miss it this Thursday. Got a special guest on, haven't we, Pete? And it's got. I mean, the fully loaded transfer show anyway is fantastic as it is. We're always joined by Jordan Cronin from Newcastle Wales, top fella, and ourselves are on there as well. But we're being joined by a very special guest on Thursday, so you will not want to miss it. But I'm not going to say any more, Pete. That's me. So yeah, if you're intrigued, get yourself on. Anyway, before we go to some viewer comments, which I want to do, I'm going to bring on our next guest because we've got 2 more guests waiting, and I'm conscious that they've been waiting very patiently. So the third guest on, big welcome to Jeff. Jeff,
It's me.
how are we?
I am. I'm okay. I'm feeling positive.
Good. We need some positivity, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, as a general rule, living one day at a time is a very good thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to emphasize. You mustn't get ahead of yourselves. Do you want to talk about the match?
Let's do it.
I suppose so. I'm quite pleased with the right-hand side. Seems to have settled down. Not bad service. It could be a lot better, I think. I was a little bit disappointed in sort of the amount of crosses coming in. Mm-hmm. Left-hand side, still the problem. Very happy with Dummett. Looks to be getting himself together. I would have played Richie rather than MSM. I would have brought him on, as Alan said, ASM. Impact sud. Wait till they get tired and then bring him on. On the subject of tired, I still think that one of those issues is the fitness as well, that we're slowly running out of steam towards the end of the game and then get pressured as we drop back. Joe Linton, great. The problem is that we do need centre-backs, don't we? Because we've got 4 very average centre-backs who don't seem to do very much. And frankly, would you want to see Lascelles bringing it out of defence? Rushing up the field in the tightest man? Thank you very much. Play within yourself. In a sense, I was quite impressed listening to Holly the other day, talking about how she wanted the Longstaffs to do well, how she wanted Dwight Gale to do well, in the sense that, we want our players to do well, and we should remember that they're human beings. Yeah. And we wouldn't say some of the things we would say if they were sat in the room with us, right? And a lot of this stuff is to do with medical stuff. They've had COVID, all sorts of things. I don't know what's going on with Longstaff. He just looks clumsy, to be honest. And I actually thought he was trying to be quite enterprising in places. He was trying to make runs. He was trying to get forward, join in. It's just not very good at it. You know what I mean? And it's not really his fault. And coming back to the Eddie Howe point, I'm in agreement with Alan again. Wait till he's had a pre-season. It took Rafa a while to get his stuff together. He was benching people. I remember him benching Shelby for a while. Saying, no, you could sit on a bench till you get your act together, son. And that's what we need. We need a pre-season. We need a change in our playing staff, should we say? So I don't think we should get too critical, because we can see a difference. At least I can see a difference. The number of shots on targets are a lot more action-packed than it used to be. We used to sit there watching them, defending for their lives, and it was just, is he going to block it or not? No, it's. So it's got a lot better. We're playing in their half of the field a lot more. Shelby's still a bit deep. I keep seeing him dropping down into sort of covering at the back. What else to say? Transfers. I don't really want to read about it in the Chronicle. I said it last week. When it's done, it's done. And I think it's going to be difficult for them. But loans, towards the end of this transfer window, we can get a couple of loans in, if not 3 or 4, isn't it?
4, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, we might have to wait for that, because that's the sort of thing that happens at the end of the season when nothing else has worked out for people. There's a little last minute shuffling about, and we will pick up people. And let's do it one game at a time and not worry about what everyone else is doing, because that's where it gets nightmarish. You've got to ration yourself.
Yeah. No, you're right. You are right.
Ration the stress. I mean, the state of Pete on the other night. I was concerned for his health, really.
It was such a good
He was the one who said, don't go on social media after a game, plugs himself in front of a camera.
I don't do it often, mate. I don't do it often, but I was, that was the one game where I really expected us to win, and I thought we would win. I'm never always 100% confident.
It was so close.
It's so frustrating. It really is.
But that's football. I mean, we can't sit here and plan out the next, what did we say, 18 games? That's going to be a 2-0. That's going. Have we ever got the score right? I've given up. I've given up predicting the score, because it's just, I've never got it right yet. I've just embarrassed myself. So, yeah, I don't think I have a lot else to say than just let's stay positive and try and remember that our players could be watching us now as we speak, right? And this is a public forum, and we should try and remember that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a valid point, Jeff. I mean, we are where we are, aren't we? And I suppose we've got to get behind the players. And don't get me wrong, you know,
we know what these guys can do. We've seen them doing it for years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It shouldn't surprise us, and it's beautiful when nice things happen, like Joe Linton has happened. That's great. You know, that just proves that, you know, players do get better. You know, remember we used to come back in pre-season and players would go, "Oh, I've forgotten how good he was. Oh, he seems to be better than he was last season." And, you know, because you get a fresh start, they get a reset, you know, the reset button.
Yeah.
And all the bad stuff's got forgotten about, and we have a fresh start.
Do you know what? Talking of that, Jeff, you've led me nicely into this because I wanted to talk about this, and this is something that Pete brought up the other day, and he was absolutely right. I mean, at the time, if anyone hasn't seen Pete's rant, you should get onto the Watford match reaction and watch it because it's really good, very passionate as always, and he makes some fantastic points. And one of the points that Pete made, Jeff, which was a really interesting one, and at the time I couldn't really agree with him because I hadn't seen it, but Pete said, if you actually watch the goal back, a lot of people were getting on the backs of Jamal Lascelles and saying that he was at fault for the goal. Now, I've watched the goal back now over 10 times, and I do tend to agree with Pete. I think blaming Jamal Lascelles for that goal is harsh. Do I think he had a great performance at the weekend? No. But in terms of the goal, I think it is very harsh to blame him. Now, I just wondered, Jeff, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you have a chance to review the goal from the weekend? Have you seen it a few times?
Well,
what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I wrote down at the time I thought it was his ball, right? That was Lascelles' ball to try and defend.
Yeah. And it looks like that.
It shouldn't have got in there.
I thought the same. I thought exactly the same. I thought it was his ball.
The other question is, where was Shah? You know, because you have to question his positioning, and then you go, you know, should the ball have come in the first place? But once you accept the ball's coming in, who's going to put a head on it? He was the only man near enough to do it, but it's done, right? And I don't think we can blame it. And I'm not a good enough pundit, as it were, to be able to work out whether Dubravka's positioning could have been better. But no, I mean, I felt it was his ball, you know, all day, but you know, it shouldn't have come in the first place, you could argue.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Go on, Pete. I don't mean to start another rant, Pete, but
no,
just want you to talk about it because it was a really, really valid point that you made following the match, mate. And I just wondered if you'd had any more reflections on it because I know you've probably watched it even more times, no doubt.
Yeah, I've watched it a number of times. I was watching it as we were on the reaction show on Saturday, and obviously I'd watched the game live and I'd saw the goal happen, and obviously your emotions take charge and you're just kind of frustrated about it all. But I was watching the clips back and I watched the build up to the goal, and I'd seen the reaction on Twitter and about Jamal Lascelles, and I couldn't help but think it wasn't his fault. So I watched it again and again and again. Watched about 8, 9 times, 10 times, 12 times, and then I'm thinking, how could it possibly be his fault? So if you look at where the move starts, so João Pedro plays the ball. He's behind Sean Longstaff in midfield. So Sean Longstaff looking at him. You can see him play the ball out wide. He then goes past Sean Longstaff. Sean Longstaff doesn't track him. He then guides his way into the box. What I'm not focusing on at that point is the fact that Paul Dummett's out of position. They play a 1-2 in and around Paul Dummett and Miggy Almiron. They get the ball into the box. And what you don't see is João Pedro just ghosting into the box, unmarked. He then comes towards Trippier, so he should then be Trippier's man. And you're absolutely quite right, Jeff. Jamal Lascelles, as the ball comes in, should be like he's the one to win the ball. And actually, if there's no one there, he wins the ball. But what we tend to forget is that he's winning the ball from a standing position. Now, if anyone's played football, you will know to be able to generate height from a standing position without getting a run and jump is difficult. But he did get a decent amount of height on it. But what João Pedro's got, he's got at least 7-8 yards of running, then make the run and then get the jump to be able to get in and above him to get the header. Now, the question mark isn't about Jamal Lascelles, because Jamal Lascelles can't see that because he's running from behind him. Jamal Lascelles doesn't know he's there until Pedro's already headed the ball and it's already in the net. He doesn't realise he's there. And if you see Jamal Lascelles stumbles afterwards because he gets knocked off balance because he's come from behind. What you don't see is from the clip is that he's ghosted past Sean Longstaff. You could argue that Sean Longstaff could have tracked him, but Trippier sees him. Now, Trippier sees him coming in. Now, what Trippier should do, now, Trippier's not the tallest, we all know that, but what a good player does, and I'm just saying this is a mistake. Trippier was by far the best player on the pitch. He had a fantastic game. But at this moment, what he should be doing is taking João Pedro off his balance to stop him getting a clean run and jump on the ball. So what you do, the best fullbacks do this. And to be fair, Trippier does do this, but he didn't on this occasion. So I always remember Ashley Cole was very, very good at this, is that he would never attempt to run, to jump and head the ball. But what he would do, he'd just nudge them off balance so they don't get a clean run on the board, and he just eases them out the way. He doesn't get a chance to do that. He doesn't do that. So he allows João Pedro to get a full run and jump over Jamal Lascelles, and he heads the ball in. Now, there's a question mark on Dubravka, and I know, Chris, we've spoken since, and you voiced it in me about this, and you don't think maybe Dubravka's at fault. I still think as a quality goalkeeper that Dubravka is, although he's not in a good moment right now, he should be doing better to stop that going in the net, and he should be more switched on at that point in time to be aware that there's a ball coming into the box and someone could quite well head the ball, and he should be more alert to try and save it. That's just
Do you know what, Pete? Do you know what? No, you're right. I didn't think he could do much with the header in terms of when the header's gone. Like, I wasn't too critical of him because I thought the header was pretty good, but I did say I do think that he could have came out and claimed that ball, because I don't think the cross was that great. Really, he should have really tried to command his box, and really he should have tried to come and claim it. And also, what I wanted to point out as well, Pete, which a few people I noticed on Twitter hadn't picked up on, at that point when the ball comes in, Kieran Trippier and Fabian Schär have swapped places. So Fabian Schär is actually in the right back position, and Kieran Trippier is in the right centre back position. So there lies a little bit of confusion as well for when that ball comes in. I mean, like you say, I don't like criticising Trippier because he did have a really, really good game.
It's expensive.
Really good game. But I do agree with you, Pete. You know, maybe on that occasion he could have maybe done a little bit better in terms of the tracking the run of João Pedro. Because when you mentioned as well about Sean Longstaff letting João Pedro go, you could argue he should have really carried on to track him. But it did look like Sean Longstaff had a little look over, and it was kind of accepted that he was coming, and that therefore Trippier was covering him. That's certainly what it looked like to me on the replay.
Well, just in the same way you could talk about a team goal, a good team goal, you could talk about a team mistake. There was a series of mistakes that various people made. And normally you could trace it back to whoever lost the ball in the first place. It's always my villain. Who lost the ball? You know, that's in modern football, that's the big sin, is losing the ball in the first place, which is why our guys tend to pass sideways all the time. Because that's less chance of losing the ball. You're not going to get in trouble. But again, with what everyone's been saying, it's to do with confidence, to do with fitness, and just general, feeling within the team. It seems to be rather nervous. As whoever, I think Alan pointed that out. They do seem just a little bit scared, and why not? We are. You know what I mean? Right. Why should they feel any different? And it's more important for them. You know, they're playing for their futures and for their families, and all the rest of it. They've got their own little things going on in their heads. So it obviously it's their job, but it is going to be. They're in a difficult situation. And the fact that the club is now very rich doesn't really change anything. In fact, probably makes it worse for most of the players there. Yeah, but it's a great point, that, Jeff. Yeah, because again, something we were talking about, saying
will some of these players naturally be thinking, well, it's not really my problem anyway, because I know at the end of the season I'm probably not going to be here, because they'll know that they're going to get replaced.
But
So
the
are you gonna
same
get the
reason, they're playing for the next,
next
are they
contract.
going to get a transfer to a Premiership team, or are they going to end up at Accrington Stanley? I mean, what is, so they're the idea that they're not going to play for the, because they're playing for their future as well, whether it's at the club or not. They're going to have a show reel. They're going to have their agent say, look how well he plays. So I don't necessarily buy the idea that because they haven't got a future at the club, they aren't going to try hard. I think, they are professionals and they're playing for their future. They don't want to end up at Accrington Stanley. They like being Premiership players.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, Accrington Stanley fans. I just picked you out at random. End up at Sunderland.
It's a great talking point now, and like there's lots in the chat that are talking about it, and Mark Byers has mentioned one or two things with regards to it, and Yano's put here, why doesn't Lascelles know he's there? If you look round, you know he would, but it's easy to say that, but it's a split second. The ball's coming directly to him. He's not going to look what's behind him, because actually where the ball lands, he's in the right position to head the ball. Now, I've just watched it again while we're on.
I knew you were watching it. I could see him looking intently.
Yeah.
He's watching.
In your eyes.
It was because you said Shaw was in the right back position, but he wasn't. He was at the left centre back. What
was he?
Yeah, the one that you're thinking of is Jacob Murphy. Murphy's behind Trippier. So you've got a line. You've got a line.
Nowhere.
What's happened? Shaw is nowhere, but I think I maybe was a little bit harsh on Fabian Shaw, because I went mad on Saturday and said he was out of position. He wasn't where he should be, and he wasn't. He wasn't, because he should have been on the edge of the 6-yard box as the first man, and then Lascelles should have been further back. That line should have been set. The reason why Shaw wasn't is because Shaw went to go and close down the guy that was running down the wing, and the reason that happens is because Dummett is so far out of position. There was someone tweeted me earlier about and it was a still shot of the positioning, and it showed how far out of position Paul Dummett was. Paul Dummett's got sucked out to the ball where the 1-2 takes place. If Paul Dummett is set with the rest of the other 3 defenders in position, that ball never gets crossed in, because Paul Dummett gets there and blocks the ball. It's I'll tag you in it, Chris.
Yeah, please, mate. Yeah.
Someone tagged me in it earlier, and they'd asked me a question on it, and it was, and I didn't realise how badly positioned Paul Dummett was for that. So there's question marks of Miguel Almiron being really out wide, too far out wide, and I would agree with that. But the way in which Paul Dummett gets sucked to the ball is unnecessary. If Paul Dummett sits to his position, the next person to close the ball down is Joe Linton, and he's close enough to do that. That ball doesn't then come into the box. That goal then doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen within that movement. And he's been sucked out. So when he's been sucked out of position, they played the 1-2 in and behind Paul Dummett. Paul Dummett doesn't get there, but Fabian Shaw comes near to be able to press the ball to try and stop that cross from coming in. That then brings him out of position, which then brings Jamal Lascelles further forward, which brings Trippier further forward, which brings Jacob Murphy further forward. So the positioning of the players is not as it should be. And that's why, at that point, João Pedro gets the run and jump on him, because I fully believe that João Pedro doesn't get the run and jump on anybody if the defence is set, because the ball doesn't come into the box. But I'll tweet you in that still, and you can see it for yourself, because it is pretty damning in Paul Dummett's positioning. I've just found it now, so I'll tag you in it.
Yeah, no, thanks, mate. Thanks.
Well,
yeah,
because one of the interesting technical things I always think about this is it's obvious who's meant to control the depth of the line, but who controls how far across the field you spread? That's a different concept.
It's a well-known fact with centre backs that centre backs, when the opposition's on the attack and they're kind of making their way either down the wing, and they're looking to cross a ball in, your first thought is, and I always remember Rio Ferdinand talking about this when him and Vidic had their fantastic partnership. The first thing as a centre-back is always get yourself back to the 6-yard line. Get yourself back to the 6-yard line so there's no ball that comes across into the box on the ground or in the air in between you and the goalkeeper. You're there to sweep everything up. The first centre-back sweeps it up. If not, the second centre-back sweeps it up. The midfielders should then be coming back, and your deepest midfielder should be getting back to at least the penalty spot, just in case the ball gets cut back in. That is the natural positioning of a midfield and a centre-back pairing. So, to be fair to them, they've done that. If you look at the positioning now, I've just had you guys both into it. If you look at it, where the defenders are set, they're set right. And if you watch the clip back, where they get to the right positioning as a defensive unit. Apart from Paul Dummett, he kind of lets the team down. And it pulls Shaw out of position, which then allows the other guys to get in. But the still that you can see is when they're on the 18-yard box. So you look at the three defenders, Shaw, Lascelles, and Trippier. They're all on the 18-yard box. As a 3, they are set as a defensive unit. You've got Paul Dummett that's at least 10 yards further forward out of position. That's how they get in behind. So it's poor positioning and poor decision-making from Paul Dummett that allows that 1-2 to happen.
Yeah, that's why I thought that Jacob Murphy, or I assumed it was Fabian Schär because I couldn't see him anywhere else. I've assumed that was Fabian Schär, but it's not, is it? So your back 4 doesn't look like a 4 because Dummett's so high up.
Yeah, you get sucked out of position. And you get certain players that do that. You get certain players that just get attracted to the ball.
Yeah.
That they don't think about their position. Stay solid, stay in your position. You could argue that your centre-backs should be telling him to do that. Your centre-back should be saying, get back into position, keep yourself set as a 4. So you could argue that they've not done their job to get him back in and pull him back. It's his first game in a long time. He's eager to get to win the ball and to tackle. You know he's a great tackler. You know he's committed. You know he's that type of player. And he's so eager to get in and win the ball, right, that sometimes you have to rein a player like that in, saying, no, you stick to your position. It's in the 88th minute. Let's see it out. Let's stay to our position. Let's stay solid. Nobody clearly said that to him because he's gone ball watching. He's gone out to win the ball. He's got sucked in and they pulled him out. It's a rookie mistake. Dummett's not played for so long, so he'll learn from that.
But you've also got to the core of the problem here is the captain and person in charge of the defence and our captain is one of our least confident players at the moment.
Yeah.
And until that's resolved, because I don't think being captain is necessarily doing Jamal Lascelles any good. But, what options do we have except, it's difficult. And we're not in that dressing room, so we don't know how that dynamic's going to work or whether we're going to just go, well, give it to Trippier. I don't want it anymore. It doesn't look good on his CV to say he gave up the captaincy or had it taken off him. So, again, that's a problem in our dressing room that needs some sort of resolving. And whether Lascelles can redeem himself, as it were, and, improve a lot, I don't know. It's a difficult thing to say because he did look promising when he was younger. But he's had this sort of Bruce period where he's just been floating. It's just not necessarily been given the sort of training he needs to develop his career. Because they weren't thinking that way at all in the club. It was just get through the next game and move on.
Yeah,
that's the
it's
problem.
really
We've got a
valid
manager that's not a coach. That's the problem. Is that we've been lucky that we've had Rafa Benitez who beforehand yes, he didn't play the best brand of football, but he was a coach. He made players better, and we're lucky now. Although some people recently don't necessarily think that, but we're lucky now that we've got Eddie Howe, who is also a coach who will make players better. You've already seen that Shelby's playing better since he's come in. Shelby was finished beforehand. Now he's playing better. I didn't think he had a bad game on Saturday. Personally, I personally didn't think he played bad. But Joe Linton is playing significantly better, so he's getting better performances out of players. Ryan Fraser being one of them as well. So that's the downfall. That's the downfall, really, is that Jamal Lascelles has lost 2.5 years. worth of coaching and development. And you could argue that he's lost those 2.5 years at a crucial point in his career.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe he gets that level back. I don't believe we see what he was where he was on the verge of the England squad just before the 2018 World Cup. We don't see that Jamal Lascelles again. And
possibly not with the Longstaffs as well, where there was he looked very good. He still seemed to do the same things, going to the left-hand side of the box and having a shot, which he was, you know, so it was one of his party tricks, disappearing off over the bar. You know, there was a time when they would go in, or they were going in, or were a bit more on target. So, as I say, he looks clumsy. You know, I'm wondering about his balance or something. There's something not right about the way he's playing. You know, Omicron the viruses can affect your inner ear and affect your balance. You know.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of players that obviously we know that players have had COVID recently as well. We don't know who they are, but we know that there are certain players that have had them. So we don't know how that's affected certain players as well. You know, who's to say that that's why Willock's not on the bench because he's had COVID again? I didn't realise, actually, it was really interesting. I can't remember where I read it, but I didn't realise that in the build-up to his signing him in the summer, he'd had COVID whilst at Arsenal. And there's a number of people that are saying that's why it affected his start at Newcastle, because he hadn't had a pre-season. He'd only played 60, 70 minutes in the whole of pre-season, plus he'd had COVID. And so by not having a pre-season and building his fitness up, that's why he started so slow for us at the beginning of the season. And I'd not realised that. So it makes a little bit of sense why he's had a slow start.
This is what I say. We should be very careful before we start writing off players and why isn't he playing and he's not good enough anymore and all the rest of it. And I wrote down on a piece of paper, snobbery. Okay, there's just a little element, Mr. Pete, of snobbery creeping in of the sort of players that should be playing for Newcastle. And I just you know, because I had to go at Chris because the money had gone to his head for a while.
I got a bit overexcited, didn't I, Jeff? Yeah,
but you know. Let's play with the players we've got. Yeah. Because it just turns into Football Manager or something, doesn't it? After a while.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, there is.
And the whole concept of what constitutes news, in inverted commas, has become hear the latest news on Newcastle, none of which is true. Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Anyway, I've probably said enough now.
Jeff, absolutely loved having you on, mate. We always do, and I'm going to give you one of these, mate. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff, and I hope to see you next week.
Indeed. Bye.
Take care.
Oh, man, legend. Love Jeff. Love Jeff. Such a top
he always
man.
offers something different, doesn't he, Jeff? Yeah. I always find.
Definitely.
Well, Pete, what should we do? Should we get our final guest on, or do you want to run through some questions before we do? How do you want to play it?
Up to you, but I want to know what life goals means. But Pete is salt of the earth, like he's here at MJF. If he's talking about the wrestler, he needs to come back to me with that, because MJF is a legend. Look, I'm a big wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan a long time. Massive wrestling fan. I was lucky enough to go to WrestleMania a long time ago in Texas. Big wrestling fan. If he's on about the legend that is MJF, then I'm all for that. Sign me up. He's an AEW legend. But yeah, I just want him to. I want Life Goals to confirm what he means by that.
Yeah, we'll have to. Well, yeah. So Life Goals, if you're hearing that, mate, confirm who MJF is, because I haven't got a clue.
Love it.
Right, do you know what? I'm good. Just before we get our last guest on, I'm only going to spend a couple of minutes on this, Pete. So I'm gonna fire some questions at you, and I'll give my opinion as well, just so we can get through comments, because we have had some really interesting posts come up today. So, question from Oliver Boothroyd: have you heard anything about Nick Hammonds, the guy brought in from Celtic to work on transfers? Apparently, he's left the club. Does anyone know any more?
Ooh.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I remember seeing that, Pete, and thinking, hang on, like I remember him coming in, and I just assumed he was working behind the scenes, and we'd not heard any more. Is that the case? Has that been confirmed by anybody, or are we getting an exclusive on Thursday, Pete?
Well, we'll ask the question for sure.
Yeah.
But Martin Hardy from the Times wrote the article, and it was a really really weird article because it had a little snippet at the start where it mentions about sort of Hammond like coming and going very, very quickly. And
Yeah, it was like a passing comment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just like everyone knows, but no one knew.
And then the rest of the article is about like something completely different. So it's not quite clear. Now, in my eyes, reading that article, I think I'm inclined to think that if it was true, so many other outlets would have jumped on it. They would have jumped on it. That it'd been in and out.
Oh,
That's
they'd love it.
They'd
love it.
From a Newcastle perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that it wasn't jumped on because it's been a few days now since that article's been out. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it was a few days ago.
Yeah.
So
it was from Saturday, wasn't it?
Possibly. I can't remember when I read it, but I know it's been a few days ago now. So I would have expected that if that was actually the case, that news would have come out by now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've not heard any more. If we find out, Oliver, we will be sure to talk about it. But yeah, we know as much as you, mate. But yeah, we might be able to find out a little bit more when we speak to Jordan Cronin for Newcastle World on Thursday. But maybe Jordan doesn't know. But hopefully we'll find something out. Okay, next one from Roger S. Pete, how's your FPL team getting on?
Next question. Hey, it's my first season. I keep forgetting.
I said I was going to remind you, didn't I? And I haven't.
I keep forgetting to change players and do things.
Yeah.
Like I've gone through good moments. I think my original team that I'd put together was an absolute disaster. And what I didn't realize is that people change them week to week. I didn't realize that. So I'd missed like probably the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I'd missed what people normally do in terms of chopping and changing players. I then started to do that, and then I managed to go up the table. I managed to do all right after that for a short period. But then every other week, like the last few weeks, because of the COVID and the changes, I've just forgotten. So there are some players that haven't played for ages. There are some players that have played and have, like for example, I think the other day, I had Ward-Prowse on the bench, and he got like 14 points because he bagged a worldie against Wolves, and I'd not put him in the team, so I lost those points. I'm just like, it's stuff like that. Look, I need time. Give me next season and the season after at least.
Hopefully we're in the Premier League next season, Pete, because we'll have a hell of a lot of fun next season, won't we? Putting Newcastle players in that team, because who knows who we'll have, but. Fingers crossed we're in it anyway. Interesting comment here from Mad Mag Mark. I always struggle saying that. He's asked Oliver Boothroyd to say, I've read he was only meant to be involved with the club for 2 to 3 weeks to educate the owners on how to conduct transfer deals, as they are the ones who are hands-on doing them. Which does tie in, actually, doesn't it, with what we've heard? Because on the article, I think it mentioned, didn't it, that it was Staveley, Howe, who were the other 2 people who were involved with the transfers? Oh, Jason Tyndall, and there was a 4th person. I can't think who it was, but they were apparently the people who were dealing with the transfers. So how true or not that is, it will be interesting to know. But I didn't realize he was only going to be in for 2 or 3 weeks just to kind of show them the ropes. I'd have thought he'd at least be until the end of the window. You would think.
I was under the impression I was the same as you, Chris. I was under the impression he was going to be in until the end of the window. And I was under the impression, it's just my opinion, this is why Dan Ashworth has not been appointed yet, because they brought Nick Hammond in to see the window through, with then the view to, after the window, appointing Dan Ashworth to plan for the summer and beyond, regardless of what league we're in. That's why that deal hasn't been. There's no point bringing Dan Ashworth in the middle of a transfer window. 1, I don't think Brighton would allow it because they've got their own transfer window to sort out. And 2, there's no point bringing him in halfway through when we're already recruiting players. It just doesn't make sense. So I was just under the impression that Nick Hammond was coming in now for this half of the season. For this half of or this part, should I say, of the window, to see the window through, and then Dan Ashworth takes it on from February onwards. That was just my assumption.
Yeah.
Got no knowledge of that. I'm not in the know, but that's just my opinion of how I saw it progressing.
Yeah, especially because, you know, the director of football seemed quite a hot topic, didn't it? And then all of a sudden it died down, and then we heard about Nick Hammond. So it kind of made sense that bring someone in to kind of deal with the transfer window now, and then bring the director of football in, you know, early 2022 once the transfer window's up the way. I thought the same as you, Pete. Question here for me from Rachel Lilly. Chris, do you have anything in the Avon collection you could give the players for the confidence? Rachel, I only wish I sold rockets, because I know where I'd be shoving some of them at the moment. But unfortunately, no rockets at Avon, I'm afraid. Now, last one before we get our next guest on, and this is an interesting one from Anders Willistoft. And some people will say this is a fair comment. You didn't give Bruce a chance to get 6 to 8 new players. So why does Howe need to get it 11 games, or is 12-1 win not good enough? Dean Smith's doing better. So it's a valid point that he's making. But what are your thoughts on that, Pete?
I saw that question earlier. I thought it was it's a reasonable question to ask.
Yeah, it is.
100%. Part of it is because Howe is a better manager. Part of it will be because of the circumstances in which Steve Bruce came into the club. After Rafa Benitez, the fans were up in arms. They weren't happy. They had Mike Ashley there. But for me, and I can only talk about me personally, I never had an issue necessarily with Steve Bruce early on. Certainly I would say for the first year of his management, I wasn't one that was calling for his head. I only called for his head from the moment that he went against the fans in the build-up to the Brentford game in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. At that point, that was it with me and Steve Bruce. I wanted him out, because you never ever call the fans. The fans are the backbone of the club. And the fact that he tried to point the finger at the fans for the reason why he put Newcastle in this mess was an absolute disgrace. And he had
it's just a joke, isn't it?
Yeah, there was no way back, and it got worse and worse and worse. And then you had the Sheffield United game, you had the Arsenal games before that, you had all the rest of it that came back afterwards. And you can never ever say what he said about the fans and the histrionics and all that rubbish that he talked about the fans and point the finger at us and think that he can never get away with it. It was at that point. So it was a season and a half into his tenure before I said, you know what, enough's enough. I was gutted that Rafa Benitez went. I didn't really want Steve Bruce, but I thought, you know what, he's coming to the club. Let's back him. And you know what, for a season and a half, I did. But at that point, that was it for me, because he went against the fans. And there was no way back for me. So it wasn't about the 6 to 8 players. It was about how he treated us as fans. And I've got no interest in Dean Smith. I don't rate him as a manager. He's not a manager that's going to take us forward. I think Eddie Howe with players brought in will do a better job. Dean Smith went to Norwich for a reason and not to a better club. He's an average manager that got a very good deal at Aston Villa because he's an ex-Villa, and he had Jack Grealish, who was a supremely talented player that got them out of the crap on more than one occasion. For me, there's no comparison with regards to who's better out of Dean Smith and Eddie Howe. That's for sure. So that's not, for me, it's not even a question.
Yeah. No, I agree, mate. I agree. For me, Eddie Howe was miles better than Steve Bruce, and it wasn't a personal thing against Steve Bruce. Like I think everyone in the media just assumed that we all just hated Steve Bruce, because of the Sunderland collection, or that we just didn't particularly like him. But it wasn't just that, was it? It was the fact that we were watching week in, week out, and he you could see that he didn't have a clue what he was doing, and that was the issue. And then, as you say, for them to then start to try and blame other people, including the one set of people you don't do that, and that's the fans. It's just not good enough, is it?
No. In the build-up to a quarter-final of the Carabao Cup, in the build-up to one of our biggest games in the season where we could have gone to the semi-final, You know, we're all dreaming of being in the semi-final, potentially going to Wembley, and he comes out with that. Nah.
Yeah, no,
not for me.
Enough. Anyway, I'm going to bring it on to our next guest. So, big welcome to Tony. Tony, how you doing, mate? Sorry for the delay.
Hi, Chris. You all right?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, well, not too bad after Saturday's result. I mean, got on that train at 9:20 from Peterborough, and I said, well, I saw a lot of fans putting on like, oh, we'll win 4-0 and that, and I thought to myself, I'll take 2-0.
Yeah, I thought 2-0 for Tony.
Obviously, the missus come to the match with me, and she actually said 2-1 to us. So, yeah. So she was nearly there with her prediction.
I wish you got it right.
Yeah, I do as well. But, no, I mean, I was really disappointed the way we let that goal in as well, especially with a couple of minutes to go as well. It just felt like more of a defeat than a point.
Yeah, it did.
To be honest with you.
It did.
Really disappointed. But we do need to shake that defence up. It isn't good. I mean, Dummett probably should have come off after 70 minutes maybe. And then maybe give Jamal Lewis 20 minutes run out. Because he was on the bench.
I did think that, Tony. I did think that. It's easy for us to say now after the game, but I did think that is someone with a little bit of pace. Give him some minutes to get him back into the game. Yeah. Maybe he wasn't fit enough. Sometimes one or two players have gone on the bench and they're on the bench just for names and not the fact that they're able actually fit enough to play. We don't know, but you would have thought late on in the game someone with a little bit of pace. But to be fair, up until that point, Dummett had a really good game. It was one mistake. And I think Mark Byers in the chat was absolutely right. You know, it's hard to point the finger at Paul Dummett for that. Yes, it cost
absolutely,
but he was tremendous for us. Our first game back after so long out,
been out for ages.
So it's hard to kind of like point the finger at him, and it's hard to argue to bring him off because he was actually playing so well. And I think Eddie Howe alluded to that in his post-match press conference about how impressed he was with Paul Dummett, and I think he'll probably get that. That's his position to lose now, if I'm honest.
Yeah. He even tried to stop that cross coming in as well, didn't he? So he tried his best to try and get in the way of that cross. Unfortunately, he didn't. You know, but yeah, rather disappointing that we ended up with a draw, as you see. I mean, and Kieran Trippier, well, he just looks a class above everybody else, doesn't he? And you can tell. You can tell he's an elite player. Yeah.
Easy.
You can see.
So lucky to have him, Tony.
Yeah, and you can see he's playing in Spain as well. And you can see why Atletico didn't want him going, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you saw the endorsing comments from Diego Simeone, saying, you know, how much of a top quality professional he was.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get, like I say, defence needs to be sorted out. I mean, if we can't get Botman over the line, let's go and try and get Milenkovic as well as Carlos.
Yeah, from Fiorentina. And I didn't know this, so I read it the other day. Milenkovic is a left-sided or left-footed centre-back, isn't he? Yeah. So he would probably be the replacement for Botman if we can't get him, as you say, Tony.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we haven't got the money. Why don't we just go in with a bid and just say to, or even go for Botman and just say to Leah, look, there we are, 45 million euros, take it or leave it. If they don't want to take it, then fair enough, look for somebody else.
Yeah, he is a player, isn't he, Pete? I don't know if you're about to say this. He is the player, we've said this numerous times over the past couple of weeks, he's the player that I think we go all in on. He's someone where if we've paid 30, 40, 50 million, you just get him through the door. Because he doesn't really seem like a risk to me. It's a safe horse to back, if you like. He ticks all of the boxes. Whereas there's other players, and you go like I've already spoken, haven't I, Pete, about my my nervousness around Diego Carlos. Like I look at it and I worry about the fact he's not played internationals. I worry about every time I see highlights of him, he's like a big bruiser and he comes in and he looks error prone. So that kind of signing, I would be a bit like, I'm not sure. But with Botman, you look at his age, you look at his CV, and he just seems to tick every box. So I'd have no problem. You know, if we ended up paying 15, 20 million too much, you've still got a player on your hands, and it's one for the future, isn't it?
I don't believe it's over. I don't believe
No,
it's
I don't
over.
think it is. No, I
think there's a deal to be done with Sven Botman. There is a deal to be done with Sven Botman. The hardest part is the fact of convincing the player. We've already apparently done that. He wants to come to the club.
Well, he's liking all the comments and everything, isn't he?
Exactly,
He's halfway there, isn't he? Really?
I think he was liking those comments because I think that weekend he expected to be a Newcastle player. I think he expected the bid to be accepted and he to move to the club. So I think that's why he was doing that. I still think he wants to come to the club. I think what needs to happen now is a huge bid needs to go to Lille, an offer that they cannot refuse. To be fair, the offer that we put in there is already fantastic for the player in his age and his capabilities. We need to go in there with an unbelievable offer that they cannot refuse. And whether that's the 45, 55, 65 million euros, pay it. It might seem like a lot right now, but I guarantee you, if we don't pay that money to get him in this window, one, we don't sign the player at any point because he goes to another club. And two, whatever we were willing to pay him will seem like an absolute snip in 3, 4, 5 years down the line. Because I think signing someone like Sven Botman keeps us in the Premier League. Not just keeps us in the Premier League, he takes us on to a new level. Okay. We won't we talk about, like I talk about personally, and we all still talk about Jonathan Woodgate as one of the best centre-back defenders that we brought to the club for an absolute steal when we brought him to Leeds. And he's still probably, alongside maybe Colaccini, one of our best defenders in the last, 20 years? Okay, but besides the Entertainers era. He's probably one of the best centre-backs we've ever had, Jonathan Woodgate. Colaccini may be a close second, in my opinion. For me, Sven Botman, he obliterates that, because he allows us to go forward, and with the financial backing, I think Botman takes us to another level and wins us trophies. That's just my opinion. So for me, the 55 million euros, the 65 million euros, I think we pay it. I think we go all in. He then becomes the statement signing, because you know what? We fought for him, we want him, and he then makes the difference. You don't have to watch how he played yesterday against Marseille. They were down to 10 men, and single-handedly he was keeping them out. Eventually they scored, but the way in which he defends, he's a sweeper. He looks to secure his centre-back, his centre-back partner. The way he drifts in, the way he wins the ball in the air, the way he's always looking for the second ball to drop, to pick up, the way he plays out from defence, he has everything. He is a top-class defender that's only going to get better.
And he's 21, so you're going to get the next 10 years out of him at least.
Yeah. Cool. And you know, and you know what as well? Like you were saying then, Pete. If you say, I don't know, say you pay 65 million euros, and I don't know off the top of my head how much that is, but I imagine it's probably somewhere between 55, 58 million, something like that. I don't know. But you look at Ben White going to Arsenal for 50 million. You look at Harry Maguire going to Man United for 70 million. Van Dijk, Liverpool, 75 million. You're getting a player in who is at the very, very start of their career. And already he's got the international caps. He's got the Champions League experience. He's a league title winner. And you're bringing in someone. If we sold him in 5 years' time, he's still only 26. So you're still getting top dollar for him. So you need to just go out and get that deal done.
Like you said, his credentials are already way above and beyond someone like Ben White already. He's already beyond him because of what he's already achieved. It's like you just said, Champions League football, La Liga winner. Okay, maybe not got a full cap at Holland, but he's played at under 21s level and will very soon get a Holland cap. Probably in this next international window, he will get a Holland cap, that's for sure. And with Van Dijk turning 30 and going the other side of 30, what you've got is a ready-made replacement to come in and take on that mantle in a few years' time. And I'm convinced of it. We need him. And, you know, never say never. I still believe there's a deal to be done. If we give 55, 65 million euros, Lille cannot turn that down, because you know what? Not even the top 6 teams will pay that in the summer. So they've got an opportunity to get a shed load of money in that they won't get in the summer, no matter what.
Well, even AC Milan won't even pay that sort of money.
No, they haven't got it. He's got out the race because what we've already offered for him, they can't afford. So they're already out the race. They already know that they've got to wait till the summer at best. And even in the summer, other teams come in and pay more than AC Milan. AC Milan haven't got any money. They haven't got the money to pay for that. They're going to have to sell significantly in order to be able to sign him. So, as far as I'm concerned, AC Milan are a non-factor for us, but we need him in this window. We've got a short window to get Sven Botman. We don't get him in the summer.
No, we don't. I agree.
I mean, ideally, before the Leeds game, sorry lads, before the Leeds game, I would like to have had 2 centre backs in by the time we play Leeds. Maybe that's not going to. Maybe that might not happen, but at least if we get Carlos through the door, at least that's one in the door. Yeah. I see Fernandes is back up and running again, isn't he?
Yeah, I hope he comes back into the team as soon as possible, Tony. I'm a big fan of Federico Fernandes.
Yeah, him and Carlos together would be a great partnership, I think.
It would.
Because Fernandes keeps everybody calm, doesn't he? You know, where
steady Eddie.
Yeah, and in midfield, I'll tell you who I'd like to see in midfield, because I know we need a CDM. I would like Boubacar Kamara, because not only can he play centre defensive midfield, but he can play centre half as well if needed, and also bring Seko Fofana in as well. So that would replace Shelby and that would replace Longstaff, because Longstaff on Saturday was really, really annoying me. He was absolutely dreadful again. He's lost a lot of confidence. I don't know if it's because Bruce has sucked the life out of a lot of this team, because when Rafa had them, I mean, Longstaff was brilliant under Rafa. Lascelles was, Shaw was, but since Rafa went and then Bruce came in, it's just like he sucked the life out of all these players now.
Yeah, it feels that way.
And really, they don't look the same players now.
Don't get me and Chris started on Seko Fofana.
I would love him because I tell you what, he's a good little player, isn't he?
Yeah. If anyone in the chat's not watched the fully loaded transfer show from last Thursday, watch the show and look and listen to how we talk about Seko Fofana and the clip that we showed, how he absolutely just destroyed PSG single-handedly early on in the season. He's a tremendous talent. We have to pay a fair bit for him. The 17 million that was being, you're absolutely right, Jeff. He
was never replaced. No,
the 17 million that's been bandied about that Seko Fofana is apparently worth, no chance. He's worth a hell of a lot more than that. And Lons won't sell him for anything less than sort of 27 million euros. So you're probably talking about 30 million euros to get him. But at 26, more than worth it.
And he's not. And the thing is, he's not gone to the African Cup of Nations. And he scored the other day again for them as well.
Yeah, the winner in the 95th minute again. He's capable of producing in big moments. He scores goals, but he's an absolute beast of a midfielder. He really is.
I mean, on Kamara, we could probably pick him up for about 10 million because he's out of contract, isn't he, in the summer?
Yeah, apparently he wants 150 grand a week. Apparently.
He's worth it.
He's worth it. Especially he's got versatile as well. He's an upgrade on Hayden, then he's straight away.
Oh, just to answer Life Goals question there, did Fofana play for Leicester? So Seko Fofana, I don't think there is any relation, is there, to is it Wesley Fofana?
Yeah, Wesley Fofana.
Yeah, the centre back. No, there's no relation. But so Wesley Fofana, who's currently injured for Leicester, he's still there. Life Goals, but no, Seko Fofana. No, different players. He plays in midfield.
Yeah, Seko Fofana was actually at Man City. He started his career at Man City.
That's right. Yeah.
And he had a loan. He had a short loan at Fulham. So he's played in the Premier League before. He's played in England before, but obviously he's gone off. He went to Udinese and then to Lens. Since then, and developed his career since.
I mean, I've got one thing I saw today as well, and this is quite a good thing to ask. Now, I personally would think it may be too much of a risk for us to do it, but Brentford and Tottenham are looking at Christian Eriksen because apparently he's got back to fitness. Yeah. Now then, if one of them take him on, I reckon the insurance premium is going to be mega high. 2, would you want him at the club in case anything happens again like that? Because he's got the vase as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a big risk, Tony. It really is.
But
But it's a great question.
He quit the game after getting that device, didn't he? He didn't bother playing on.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Christian Eriksen, he clearly wants to carry on playing football, and you've got to commend him. You've got to commend him for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, as a club, I think we were asked this, weren't we, Pete, on Losers, and we were all like kind of on the fence a little bit over it. And I know a couple of us said we wouldn't take the risk on him. A couple of us said we would. I mean, what are your thoughts on Christian Eriksen, Pete? Do you let someone else snap him up, or do you try and convince him on the Newcastle project and bring him in till at least the end of the season and then see where we go?
Well, look, as long as he goes through, as long as he gets through his medical checks, and I imagine they'd be rigorous to ensure that he's able to play. So the sort of the medical professionals in this country, the medical professionals at Newcastle would go through their medical checks to see if he is possible to play football in England. They would have to go through that. If he passes all that, then of course, like the one thing that Newcastle fans were talking about on Saturday, other than the centre-back issue and the defensive issue, was the fact that we didn't create chances. Now, that is what Christian Eriksen does. He creates chances. He scores goals. He's a set-piece specialist. He gives you exactly that. He is that one player in that number 10 position that can pick up a ball, find a pass, that can create chances. Like, he is that player. Now, if we're allowing him to just waltz into Brentford and strengthen Brentford, who, you know, are still in distance of his catching, you know, we can still catch them over the course of the second half of the season. There's no doubt about that. If we're going to strengthen someone to pull further away from us, nah. Like, he wouldn't be on a massive deal. Like, I think he'd be more than comfortable on the fact that because of his medical condition, that he wouldn't be commanding a huge wage. So it's not a case of a wage. I think if you're asking me who am I going to, Newcastle or Brentford, regardless of Brentford's position right now, you would choose Newcastle. Like, you're mad not to. And maybe
Gabby at Bonlahor would disagree with you, Pete.
Oh yeah.
He's a prick though, isn't he? So,
No,
of course,
absolutely.
He doesn't like Newcastle, and he doesn't like anything north of Birmingham.
I'd like to see what's he actually done in his career. What's he actually won? Agbonlahor or nothing. So.
Oh, by the way, lads, did you see that video from it was from a Monday Night Football or something with Gary Neville? I think it was Gary Neville, Frank Lampard, and Jamie Carragher, and they were saying they were doing the commentary on the first half of an Aston Villa game when Gabby Agbonlahor was playing for them, and I think he'd had 8 touches in that first half, and it showed. Gary Neville said, "You know what my biggest concern is?" He said, "Out of those 8 touches, 2 of them were the kickoff," and then they all just start laughing. Oh, mate, so good, so good.
Every time Gabby Agbonlahor says something, that just needs to be the tweet back, video.
Yeah.
He'll soon shut up.
I just don't know what his beef is with us at all.
Tony, there's no beef, right?
No.
It's the same as what Chris Sutton did. It's the same as what Simon Jordan did. It's the same as what Danny Murphy's done in the past. It's the same as what Danny Mills has done in the past. People like Gabby Agbonlahor, nobody cares about what he has to say because he was an awful footballer, right? And he doesn't even like football. He's admitted that. He doesn't even like football. He only did it because he earned money from it and it was a profession that he was good at. He doesn't like football. But the fact that he's talking about Newcastle now is because it creates traction for him. It gives him more attention in the media. And if it gives him more attention, TalkSport are going to keep paying him, so he sees it as a financial benefit. That's the only reason he talks about Newcastle, because he knows if he says anything about Newcastle, he's going to get a ream of Newcastle fans that are going to shoot back at him and go mad at his viewpoints and argue against him. So he gets loads of traction and he goes, you know what, I'm going to keep doing it. And so he keeps doing it and keeps doing it. Does he believe half of what he says? No. Of course he doesn't, but he does it to get a reaction out of Newcastle fans. So I don't react to it. I don't react to it on social media. I don't even listen to the videos that he puts on because he's doing it for a reaction. That's just who he is. He's an idiot.
Yeah, he is an absolute idiot. I mean, the thing is, I mean, you know, when we sacked Bruce, obviously we got a lot of stick over that, saying, "Oh, the fans hounded him out and everything." Now, the fans hounded Benitez out worse at Everton than we did with Bruce, if I'm honest, and nothing said about that. All you get is these players coming out like Alan Stubbs. Oh well, he shouldn't have been manager of the club in the first place, and things, you know. And you think, well, what about the fans? What about the hounding out, the banners? You know.
Yeah, well, if you remember when he first got the job, there was 2 or 3 banners outside his house.
Yeah.
If you remember, and they were quite strong, strongly worded messages on the banners outside his house. So that can't have been nice for his family. But yeah, no, you're right in what you say, Tony. Unfortunately, as Pete said, Newcastle at the moment, well, Newcastle even before were quite magnified, you know, in terms of like the media like to create this big fanfare, this big circus around Newcastle, and that's only going to get worse now, unfortunately, because of the money and because we're the richest club in the world. Everyone wants us to fail, unfortunately, now, and we're going to have to start getting used to that.
And the thing is, what people see, what gets me about the fans is as well, all saying, "Oh well, if Newcastle go down, we'll all laugh because the richest club in the world's gone to the Championship." But what they should be looking at is the prior 14 years, Ashley never really invested in the club. This is why the club is where it is now, because the players are not Premier League players. It's a Championship squad. Most of it is anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's because Mike Ashley didn't invest. That's why. When we finished 5th under Pardew, we should have invested and carried that on, but we didn't.
That's right.
And every time we bought a player in a bit cheaper and he did well, and then somebody come in, like, say, I'll go Oliosi Perez, for instance, we pay $1.5 million for him from Tenerife. And Leicester bid 30 million, so Ashley thinks, right, let's sell him because I'll get £30 million. That's a £28.5 million profit made on a player.
Yeah, the one that hurt the most, I think, was Kabay. I think that was our downfall. You know, he was our midfield general. All of our attack and play, 9 times out of 10, was coming through Kabay. And as soon as we sold him, we didn't replace him, and then it just went downhill from there, really.
The best deal we ever done was Rob Spurs at 30 million for Sissoko.
Oh, that chance at the weekend, it was funny because as soon as he hit it, I didn't actually realise at that split moment it was Sissoko, and then when he hit it and the ball just flew, I looked and was like, oh my god, thank God that fell to Sissoko. Because do you know what? I don't care what anyone says, he is a terrible footballer. He absolutely terrible footballer. And do you remember when we just sold him? Was it World Cup 2018? And he had a half decent tournament, and everyone was saying, "Oh, what a player! Oh, what a fantastic footballer!" And it's like, whoa. You obviously don't watch him that much because he's not a fantastic footballer. He's got a good engine on him, and he gets round and he'll get his foot stuck in. I'm not denying that. But in terms of like being in a French national squad, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
With the players they've got as well.
Hence why he's at Watford now. No surprise.
On a free transfer as well.
Yeah.
And they've just kicked Danny Rose out as well, haven't they? So not good enough.
Yeah, that was another one, wasn't it? Yeah. We called that as well, didn't we?
Didn't we just? Yeah. But no.
Bullet
So
dodged.
hopefully, well, I would like to see go down to Leeds and get 3 points, but I know it's going to be very hard. Because their left wing back scored a hat trick the other day, didn't he, Jack Harrison? Yesterday.
Yeah. Good player, Jack Harrison.
He is, isn't he? I mean, Man City let him go. I was surprised at that.
Yeah, good player. Anyway, Tony, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to wrap it up because we've just gone over the 2-hour mark, and I'm absolutely starving, and I'm sure Pete's got to get going as well. But listen, Tony, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Much appreciated, and hopefully see you next week.
Yeah, no problem, lads. Thank you very much. And hopefully we may get 3 points on Saturday.
Fingers crossed. We need it.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Definitely.
All right. You take care, Tony.
Thank you. You too. See you
later, mate. Ta-da, mate. Ta-da. Woo! What a night, Pete. What a night. Do you know what? It's been a lot more positive than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of positivity, not just with the guests, but in the chat as well. Some great questions from the chat and the guys that have come on. Really, really good. Really, really good.
I've still got some star questions there, Pete, and I want to whiz through them because, like I said, like you've just said, really, really good questions, and I don't want them to go to waste. And it's nice, when we get questions in from the viewers, because obviously it's stuff that we want to hear. Really quick one, and I liked this one, and I asked you to start this one, didn't I? From Golf and Geordie. Do you think Eddie Howe got his tactics right on Saturday?
I wonder what he's referring to. Whether it's
I know.
Starting tactics or the tactics in game.
I suppose you could touch on both briefly if you wanted, Pete. I mean, loads of people have been screaming for a new formation, haven't they? And then obviously there'll be some people who say, Paul Dummett, great game, but he made the mistake. Would he have made that mistake if he played 3 or 4 games? Should he have been subbed off? Should Maxi? I mean, we keep talking about it, don't we, with Maxi? If you actually take away his goal, fantastic goal, did Maxi have a great game?
Yeah. I get really frustrated with St. Maximin.
And the Chris Wood point as well. I just want to touch on Pete. Chris Wood as well. Do we blame Eddie Howe for the fact that we didn't utilise Chris Wood? So another thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could maybe ask the question why he wasn't utilised as much as he should be. I think in one of the interviews, I can't remember which one it was, he kind of, sort of referred to the fact that he wasn't in the game as much as he should have been, certainly as the game went on. So maybe as a manager, he should be making sure that happens. That certainly should have been his halftime team talk. But I don't think the setup of the team was wrong. I thought the personnel was right. I think Ryan Fraser going off made a massive difference, and I know why he got brought off, because he was on a yellow card. If it had not been on a yellow card, I actually think he wouldn't have come off. And Jacob Murphy wouldn't have come on. I think he'd have kept Ryan Fraser on the pitch. I think Ryan Fraser is becoming a hugely influential player in that team. In the way he plays, he's infectious. The way he presses the ball, the way he works hard off the ball.
He does work hard. Yeah.
And maybe we've not seen his qualities on the ball in attacking areas, but I'm sure we'll see that soon. And Chris Wood will certainly benefit from that. Ryan Fraser was the one player that was actually playing it into Wood and making things tick. I get frustrated with Alan St-Maximin. I think his one position is on the left-hand side in this setup. I don't think there's a setup that works right now, because I don't think we've got the personnel to change the setup to make it work. If we change the setup, it might suit the defenders, but not the attacking players. And if we changed it in another way, it would suit the attacking players, but not the defenders. We can't win at the moment because we're not got the personnel. I think Eddie Howe's tactics were spot on. Maybe he could have made changes a little bit earlier with certain players, but the same situation would have happened. You could argue that he could have took Willock off, took Sean Longstaff off and brought Willock on. But Willock, would he have trapped with the João Pedro, better than Sean Longstaff? There's an argument that he probably wouldn't have. So it's a difficult situation. I think his tactics were fine. I think it was just players switching off at crucial moments that stopped us from getting the points.
Yeah. Pete WY says we need to back Howe. To be fair, what I'd say is he's famous for his teams playing short passing, and he needs to mix it up a bit and change his style of play to get the best out of Wood. What would you say to that, Pete?
I think for now, I think Pete makes a great point. I think for now he does need to mix that up with certain players. So, for example, and you touched on it earlier in the show, Chris. Jamal Lascelles, yes, he wasn't at fault for the goal, in my opinion, but he was dreadful at times in that game. And the 2 passes that you referred to that he gave away nearly cost us a goal on both occasions. Was testament to that. So what you say, just like you say in my opinion, to Martin Dubravka after that issue against Man City where he was playing it short and he didn't need to give the ball away. You say to certain players that can't play the system that you want them to play, is right. This is how we play, but if you're under pressure, Jamal Lascelles, just hit it long and work the wings. Just play it wide, work the wings, play it into the channel, or drive it forward into Chris Woods and make him do something with the ball. Either hold it up and bring others into play, or get a flick on, and then we push the team up. We push the team up so we're not. So
yeah,
the ball,
we'll reset. We'll start again.
Yeah, and that's it. You just reset, start again, but push the defence up. We play a high line and we push them back. That's what should be done. With Martin Dubravka, don't be playing it around in defence unless it's a simple ball that's on, right? Again, you go into the channels or you work Chris Wood. That's what you do. So with certain players, that's what you should be saying in your conversations with them, because you know that Jamal Lascelles can't play on the ball. You know that Dubravka can't play on the ball. So you don't ask them to do the job that maybe Fabian Schär can do, that he can bring the ball out and play nice, intricate passes.
Yeah.
Kieran Trippier can play that. Paul Dummett's similar. Paul Dummett's not great with bringing out the ball. But so what do you say? Okay, play the ball down the line, play it nice and simple. If it's not on, hit the ball long, and we move up the pitch.
Yeah,
that's what we should be doing, in my opinion.
It was an interesting point that Nathan made, actually, and I hadn't picked up on it myself, but he was saying that Dubravka was constantly hitting it to Joe Linton because that was the previous tactic. But yeah, like you've just said there, if in doubt, hit it down the centre and look for Chris Wood. Because at least then, and then you've got your runners, you've got your Maxi, your Fraser, your Longstaff, and you say, right, go for the second ball, go push, press, and go for the second ball and win possession back. Takes the pressure off the back four then, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what we've signed him for, is to take the pressure off the defence.
Yeah.
It is for him to hold the ball up, for it to stick, and to allow him to create opportunities going forward. It's exactly what he did for Burnley. But we've got players on the other side of things that can really hurt teams if we allow him to come into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll whiz through these now, Pete. So Mark Byers said, I know we touched on this briefly, but all well and good linking us with centre-backs, but we need a holding defensive midfielder and a creative centre midfielder to protect the defence and create chances. That's more important right now, and we're not being linked with any. Mark, I said the same earlier. For me now, especially after that game at the weekend, I don't know about you, Pete, centre mid is just as, if not more important than centre back for me at the moment. Like the midfield is just so poor. It's so poor. And you do wonder if we had, a more dominant destroyer. I keep using that word, a destroyer in the midfield. Would that take the pressure off the centre backs? And would we see improved performances? I want a centre back. Don't get me wrong, but I equally think we need a centre midfielder. Really do.
Personally, I think we need a centre back more. Like I say, with a solid centre back, with a solid quality centre back, it allows someone like, with all due respect, Jamal Lascelles to be taken out of the team, which is what a lot of fans want. They don't want him starting games. They don't want him as captain. They want him out of the team. Let's get a centre back in who's significantly better, that takes him out of the team and makes that defensive unit better. Okay, that's what we need first and foremost. I agree we need a midfielder. We've been linked with three. The three centre midfielders we've been probably linked heavily with is Seko Fofana, in particular Aaron Ramsey, and I know he's had COVID, but I'm pretty sure he must be over his isolation period now. And more recently, Christian Eriksen. Christian Eriksen's more of a number 10, but the other two are centre midfielders. You've got an opportunity to get one of those three, or maybe two of those three in, because I think if you pay the money, you get Fofana. If you pay the money in terms of covering a chunk of his wages, you get Aaron Ramsey. And if you are solid enough, okay, in your approach for Christian Eriksen, you've got Christian Eriksen. And Life Goals rightly said Todd Cantwell, but that's got a little bit quiet recently. Again, a number 10. So you've got players there as options to bring in. But I think first and foremost is a centre-back to remove the negative mentality in the likes of Jamal Lascelles or Fabian Schär, or both if you get two centre-backs in. And then you're breeding a new type of centre-back that's coming in with a winning mentality, with a fresh mindset, someone that can play on the ground and doesn't concede the two chances that Jamal Lascelles does. It gives a better outlook in the team. It gives the team more confidence. Then you bring your creativity in. And then for me, you bring another striker in that can get goals. That would be, for me, the process that I would work in.
It's an interesting one, actually, Pete, because...
Striker.
Yeah, it's an interesting one you say that, actually, because if you think about it, if we were to bring in a new centre-back and Federico Fernandez returns and Paul Dummett's just returned, you end up with a brand new back four, don't you? So you've got Kieran Trippier, Federico Fernandez, new centre-back, Paul Dummett.
How long have we talked about that this defence is old hack and it's old and it's past its sell by date? We've been saying it for ages now. It's been this defensive unit has been and gone, and I'm including Shaw in this. I'm pretty much including Fede Fernandez in this, although he is a decent defender. But these players are part of an old style Newcastle United under an old ownership under two previous managers. We need to just, with all due respect, ship these guys out and bring new players in, because it's the one thing we haven't done. We haven't freshened up this squad enough in the last 5, 6, 7 years. We've got players still here. I think I saw someone on Twitter the other day. I think we played Aston Villa at this point last season or something like that. I can't remember. We played a team, and they kind of matched up the starting lineup from then to now. And I think it was Aston Villa, because Aston Villa have no players that played.
Yeah, I've seen that, and we've got 7.
And we've got 7.
I've seen that.
Got 7 players in our squad that played in that game 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's unheard of. That's crazy. Ridiculous. Like, these players just need to be moved on, certainly moved out of the first 11, and move forward. And the defence is where we need to start. Get rid of those defenders, get defenders in that are new, fresh, got a different mentality to the way that we play. And I guarantee you will see better performances and more likely clean sheets. Then you build your midfield, you build a centre midfielder that can come in and take the likes of Longstaff out the team. You possibly get a number 10 that can come in and add to that creativity. And for me, you get another striker in as an alternative to Wood that can go and get your goals. So you've got an alternative. If Wood's not doing the business, you've got another striker that can come in. We've been linked with Zapata, 30-year-old, scored a ridiculous amount of goals at Atalanta in the Champions League as well. Get him in, get him starting, get him getting the goals that can keep us in the league. Yeah.
No, I agree, mate. Next one isn't really a question, it's more of a comment, and I know it's a comment that you're going to be a big fan of, Pete. Sean Lovac says Rafa Benitez had this chance to come back to Newcastle and turned us down to stay at to go to Everton, and he knew the Everton fans did not want him, and he would have been loved if he'd come back when the takeover happens. Which I think is a fair point, and loads of people are talking about Rafa Benitez at the moment, aren't they, Pete? And I know that you made your points on Rafa Benitez returning very, very clear. I know a few people are mentioning director of football, but let's be honest, he's not accepting a director of football role. And who's to say that we would want Rafa Benitez in a director of football role? We've seen from Rafa Benitez, one thing that we all know very well is that Rafa Benitez wants it Rafa Benitez's way. Now, would he work well with a manager in a director of football role? I'm not so sure he would. So these shouts for a director of football role for Rafa Benitez, I think, are quite unusual. I know he's got his database of players and stuff like that. That's great. If you want to bring him in as an advisor for a month, like we've done with Nick Hammond, you know, I could argue that, but I can't see him working alongside a manager and being happy, you know, to be told what to do. I just don't see it.
Rafa Benitez has had his chance and he blew it, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want him back at the club. I don't want him back as director of football. I think there's better directors of football out there. Dan Ashworth is one of them. I would much rather him come in the club that's got experience of being a director of football and being able to give a more modern way of building a team. I personally don't think if Rafa Benitez had come back, I don't think from the way fans are right now would have accepted his style of football either. I would have if he'd have come back in the summer.
To keep us up, Pete. To keep us up,
I would have loved him to have come back in the summer. But the fact that he turned down that, not that he turned this down, but the fact that he accepted that
he didn't wait, did he?
The fact that he accepted that Everton job that was never ever going to work. It was never going to work. I always remember Liam Kennedy back in February of 2021 saying on the show with Steve on a Tuesday that Rafa Benitez is notorious for jumping in and just taking a job without even considering it, because he just doesn't like being out of managerial work. And he's rushed himself into this job because it was the job that was available at that time. And he wasn't thinking logically. And he has made his own mistake. I don't feel sorry for him, because he should have never took the job in the first place. He should have held on, seen how the land lied. And you know what? With the takeover, he'd have been installed as manager the next day. Steve Bruce wouldn't have got the Tottenham game if Rafa Benitez was around. Rafa Benitez would have been employed as manager the next day at Newcastle United. I can guarantee that would have happened. And Steve Bruce would have never got the Tottenham game. Rafa Benitez would have been manager now. We would have loved him to bitch, but he decided against it. He decided to go to a club that didn't want him. The fans didn't want him. It was never going to work out. And therefore, what he's shown now is that he's past his peak. In my opinion, I don't think he gets another top job. I think he's going to struggle to get another Premier League job. If it is, it's going to be a lower down team, and I think he's going to have to now go back into Europe and to find another team to be manager at. I'd be very surprised on where he gets his next job. But ultimately, I don't care. I think a lot of the talk of wanting Rafa back, I said it on Saturday, it's a massive disrespect to Eddie Howe. As I said before, Eddie Howe took the job when nobody else wanted it. Everybody else turned down this job. Eddie Howe wanted this job. Eddie Howe is our manager. We should be backing him 110%. He has managed this club for what, 8 to 10 weeks with some of the crap that's in this club, with some of the crap that are in this squad. And he's working with them, and he's determined to make it as best success as possible. You know what? He's embraced the culture at Newcastle. He's embraced the fans. He's trying to do things in a better way. We should be thinking about Eddie Howe and as our manager, and not Rafa Benitez. Rafa Benitez is old news.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Eddie Howe is our future, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I'm just going to whiz through these last few ones, Pete. So Chris McCarthy says, "Evening, Chris and Pete. Is the rumor true about Ousmane Dembele?"
Yeah, just been reading on that. Apparently he's been offered by Barcelona to Newcastle for as little as 20 million euros, which is not a lot of money. You're talking probably about 16 million pound. So they're clearly still clearing the decks. There are other players that I'd want from Barcelona, if I'm honest with you, just because of the injury record of Ousmane Dembele. But look, if fit, Ousmane Dembele is a super talent. There's no doubt about that. He is, he is a top player. And if we can get him on a cheap deal, he would seriously improve our team, for sure. So
at that price, it would be very interesting. My only concern again is the injury records, and I'm assuming he's going to be wanting at least 150, 200 grand a week. And
I don't think he's in a position, Chris, to demand that because of his injury record. I mean,
yeah, true.
Maybe if he plays so many performances, or after so many performances, it goes up to that amount or goes up to more than that. Fair enough, because then he's going to have to prove his fitness in order to earn that contract. But at the same time, 150 grand with our small wage bill, it's not. Yeah.
I think it's worth the risk at that price. I think it is worth the risk.
The only thing is that on the thing that I'd seen is that he'd also been offered to Man United. To be honest, Man United.
I don't see Man United going for him.
Man United don't need another winger.
No, they don't.
So Rashford, Martial, they've got Greenwood. They've got all those. You've got 3 or 4 there that come off the wing.
Yeah, they won't take him. They won't take him.
I don't think they need him. So we may be in the driving seat for that. And look, it was very clear on Sky Sports. I think Pete Graves put it out the other week that there are a number of players that we're linked to that nobody's talked about yet. So I think all the players that have been linked are good players and would be good at Newcastle. But I think there's 1 or 2 diamonds out there that we've not yet heard of that could be coming to Newcastle before the end of the window.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even when you look at the likes of City have got an abundance of wingers. Chelsea have got an abundance of wingers. Liverpool, I think they've probably got their eyes on someone else. I don't think they'd go for Ousmane Dembele. And obviously, where would they play him? Do you know what I mean? With Salah and Mane, he's not going to play there, is he? So again, there is a possibility of him coming to somewhere like us, but who knows? Tom Dixon asks Pete, what sort of team would you play against Leeds at the weekend? For me, I think we should go 4-4-2. Would you stick with the current formation, or would you look at 4-4-2? I mean, the only problem is if you go 4-4-2, I'm assuming Maxi and Chris Wood would have to play up front, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it would have to be, unless Maxi's not playing. But yeah, that would be sort of the.
Or Zapata.
Yeah, I'll flip it now.
Go 4-4-2 then. Yeah.
Too right. Yeah. There's an argument for that. I'm a sort of a very sort of set formation, but I think our current formation is good enough to win the game. If I'm honest with you, we're with similar personnel, but if we can add a couple of players in between now and Saturday, I think we'd have an even better chance.
Yeah. Okay, next one. I'm just whizzing through these now, Pete, because we're nearly at the end. What would you think if we went for someone like Ross Barkley? I think he's more realistic signing, could offer more going forward than our current midfield. Adam, me personally, I wouldn't go near Ross Barkley. That's just my own opinion. I think he's a little bit in the Dele Alli mould, in that I wonder whether his head's really on football now. I'm not. I know he did okay at Villa, but then Villa didn't take up the option of buying him. He's back at Chelsea. He's not getting a look in under Tuchel. He didn't get a look in under previous Chelsea managers. I just don't know. I don't know if he's the right signing. Is he an upgrade on what we've got? Yes, but I just don't know if he's the right option. I'm not so sure. What about you, Pete?
I would rather take Dele Alli than Ross Barkley.
Yeah, I would.
But then it's a tough one, because I take Ross Barkley or Sean Longstaff? I'd take Ross Barkley, because I think Ross Barkley would offer you more in that midfield than Sean Longstaff would. But then again, I always have a question mark about a player that's willing to just sit on the bench and do nothing at a club.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
I always thought that about a player like Sean Wright-Phillips. He stayed for Chelsea for years and just sat on the bench and did absolutely nothing. I'm thinking, like, do you even value your career? Like, you just wasted it just to sit at a top four club, just to be a part of something that you're actually not contributing to. Ross Barkley is exactly that, and the way in which his loan ended at Villa is a question mark too.
Yeah, it's weird, because he did all right.
He started well, and then just completely
he faded off.
And to the point where he was barely getting off the bench in some games, and that always sets alarm bells for me. Is that for a person that was in the England squad and was as talented as the media made out, why is that just all of a sudden disappeared? What's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about? They're the kind of questions that go around in my head with Ross Barkley. But on his day, he can be a very talented player. But yeah, if you're asking me, I think there are other players out there. We've been linked with Aaron Ramsey. We've been linked with Todd Cantwell. We've been linked with Dele Alli. We've been linked with Christian Eriksen. All better players than Ross Barkley. And I will take all of them above Ross Barkley, if I'm honest.
Yeah, agree, mate. Second to last one. Hi, lads. Great show as always. Thank you very much, Captain Keithart. I was wondering if ASM and Willock's recent poor form and attitude might be something to do with how much Bruce loved them and let them get away with all sorts. It's a good point.
I agree. Certainly with ASM, I think that's why ASM was so disappointed when Bruce left, is because the amount of times you see players' interviews and they all mentioned about how ASM was always late to training or always late in the mornings and always got fines and got away with things, and it's because of his abilities, because Bruce banked on him in order to kind of save his season year upon year. So he's been used to getting away with a lot, but Eddie Howe doesn't work like that. And I think it would probably take a little bit of getting used to, because he's actually got to be a professional. Now, if he wants to get a move elsewhere, if we go down, he's got to show his professional abilities as well. Someone like ASM. I don't think it's the same with Willock. From what people say, he's a very professional young man. He always goes about things the right way. I just think he's having a down moment at the moment. And I talked about earlier in the show about his COVID and how it's had a negative effect on him. You know, we've got to remember the season before we had ASM out for 10 weeks for long COVID for the same thing.
Yeah, we did. We did.
It took him a while to get back to his best, and picked up a couple of injuries after that point, because it affects your ability to be active. It affects your muscles. It affects your recovery. It affects a lot of things. And maybe Joe Willock's going through that period. You know, in any other time, he probably would have been played through that period and he'd probably started every game. But the fact that we need to win and we need matches, we can't afford to carry everyone, I think is the reason why he's on the bench at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good point, mate. Life goals. I brought this last one up because I'm not going to ask Pete this, because Lee Girdleston sent me and Pete a question in weeks ago, fully months ago, and we've not had time to actually discuss it, and it is around this very question. So next week, Pete, we'll do our best, see if we can squeeze it in. And I keep promising Lee we're going to do it, and we haven't done it yet. And I am going to do it, and it is based around this question. So me and Pete have drew up some players. We might have to chop and change some based on recent performances. Who knows? But yeah, we will definitely come back to that. And if we don't at the start of the show next week, life goals, bring it up to remind me, because poor Lee asked me ages ago, and I am promising him I'm going to do it. Last thing I'm going to bring up is a comment from Brian Fairtel, and it's interesting. He's saying Ousmane Dembele earns 287 grand a week, which is £14,924,000 a year. Sorry, £14,924,000 per year playing for Barcelona. His current contract expires on the 30th of June 2022, which I did know, Brian. I knew his contract ended at the end of the season, and it's interesting because Barcelona were meant to be offering him a new deal, but maybe maybe Ousmane Dembele's gone, I want 400 grand a year, and Barcelona thought, like, cut our losses. That could be why he's getting offered to us. Who knows?
He's not signed a new deal because Barcelona want to keep him, but they want to keep him on significantly reduced wages. And he's not prepared to do it at Barcelona. It's as simple as that. And it was the same with Samuel Umtiti. That's why they wanted rid of him. He signed a new contract now
on reduced terms.
But they still want to loan him out. Now, what's happened with Samuel Umtiti? He's gone and got injured again.
Yeah, he's injured, isn't he? Yeah.
His fifth metatarsal, so he's going to be out for a significant period of time. So nobody's going to be signing him now, and then they're now stuck with him. But Ousmane Dembele, that's why I think he's been offered out in January, because if he's not going to sign a new contract, they don't want to pay his contract currently for another 6 months. They'd rather get him off the wage bill, which is why they're offering him at such a cheap deal, considering they paid over 100 million for him, that they're offering him for what, £15 million, because they just want him gone. They want that wage bill cut completely. Because that may allow other players to be able to stay at the club, and for them to actually sign a couple of players in the window.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Pete, I'm going to end it there. We've gone for the marathon show today, haven't we? 2.5 hours just over. But it's been great to be back. Always enjoy being on with you, Pete, and some fantastic guests and comments.
Definitely.
So,
always great. The chat is always lively. Great questions, great points made, and as well, great guests. So always a pleasure on a Monday night.
Yeah, absolutely love it. But listen, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Really enjoy your interacting with us, and yeah, please like and share the video. Take care, everyone. See you next week.
Take care.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the